cultivating a tree of life in the world of wizards. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, King Mu Spirit. First update. Ronan thought about it again and felt that it was not safe enough for him to transform himself to enroll in the academy. So he asked Paul, do the professors in the academy have students? The students of formal wizards in the academy are all wizard apprentices. Since those students have learned the knowledge of formal wizards, then he can find a way to obtain knowledge from these students. As a wizard apprentice, it is very difficult to find that he drank the transformation potion. After all, in the kingdom, only a very few wizards have the means to detect the transformation using the transformation potion. Otherwise, the royal family would not issue a decree to strictly prohibit the transformation potion. Several major cases committed by black wizards in the history of the kingdom would not happen. Most of them will. What do you want to learn? Paul said. I'm more interested in space witchcraft and alchemy knowledge. Ronan said. Continuing to study space witchcraft can allow him to extend a larger space to accommodate his increasingly luxuriant life tree, and the knowledge of alchemy allows him to refine a more effective growth potion. He has not attended the alchemy class of the mysterious professor for a long time, because he had already mastered all the knowledge taught by the professor. As for the more in-depth knowledge, the professor would not teach it in off-campus classes. Because once he taught in-depth knowledge, it would be easy to expose his deep research in the field of pharmacy, and then expose his identity. There is a formal wizard in the academy who studies space magic, Milan Quentin, the Void Walker, and he has 2 students. After listening to Ronan's question, Paul replied, wizards who study space magic have always been rare. The 2 students usually stay at home and rarely go out. I haven't seen them many times. If you want to learn space magic, I can try to get close to them. There are several masters of pharmacy in the academy. As far as I know, there are 3 who have accepted students. One of the pharmacy masters, named Gumanpir, is proficient in pharmacy, but his combat effectiveness is average. His formal wizard level is still raised by taking medicine. Moreover, he was promoted to a formal wizard just to be able to perform the magic of refining medicine, not to improve his combat effectiveness. He accepted 3 students, one of whom I have met several times. However, these students have become disciples of formal wizards, and they have a bright future. Private teaching is a violation of the laws of the kingdom, and privately teaching their own teacher's knowledge is even more of an offense to their teacher. Even if you find them and ask them, they may not be willing to teach you. Ronan nodded and said, please help me find out about them first, and see where they will be active after leaving the academy. First, find a way to get close to them, and then we'll see whether they are willing to teach. He felt that there was always a price for the wizard knowledge they had. As long as the price was high, they would sell it, even if they risked violating the law and offending their teachers. The first thing he had to do was to understand what these formal wizard students wanted. Paul nodded and agreed. 5 days passed in a blink of an eye. Since meeting Paul that day, Ronan has been secluded in the bungalow. These days, he refined the green growth liquid every day and performed the speed growth technique to accelerate the growth of his life tree. Beside the laboratory table, he manipulated a dozen wizards' hands, busying up and down, refining the green growth liquid. On the laboratory table, there were 2 crucibles. One crucible can only refine 5 portions of green growth liquid. He had 8 spiritual plants, and he had to water them with green liquid every day, so he used 2 crucibles to refine them at the same time. At this time, the grinding, extraction, precipitation and other steps were all carried out at the same time. To others, all the medicine refining tools on the laboratory table were moving by themselves. After more than an hour, 8 portions of green liquid were refined by him. At this time, he felt something in his heart, so he called out Hang Meng and adjusted the value. Green liquid, master 1%. After a period of refining, the green liquid finally reached the master level. After the proficiency increased, his future refining speed would be faster, and the efficacy of the green liquid would be better. He used the wizard's hand to pick up 2 crucibles and walked into the botanical garden. First, the green liquid was poured on the two natal immortal trees. At the same time, he called out Hang Meng and analyzed the two natal immortal trees. Spiritual plant, natal immortal tree year. 99. The mother tree of the natal immortal tree is now 3 meters high, and its age is approaching 100 years. Spiritual plant, the life tree year. 25. The child tree of the life tree is also growing vigorously, constantly giving him feedback on the refined spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After Ronan watered the two life trees, he went down to the cellar and watered the growth green liquid on 6 kindling Kian bamboos. Then, he went up to the cellar again. After using the wizard's hand, he put the crucible back on the experimental table and sat cross-legged in the botanical garden. He used the ancient wood longevity magic power and injected the witchcraft model of fast growth technique. With both hands open, a green light landed on the mother tree of the life tree. The roots of the life tree gradually extended underground. The branches and leaves also flourished quietly. After about half an hour, Ronan suddenly felt something in his heart. He immediately summoned Hang Meng to analyze the life tree. Spiritual plant, the life tree year. 100 years. Ronan felt a surge of vitality emerging from deep within his body, transforming into a dark green stream of light, flowing through his meridians, muscles, and bones. Instantly, he felt as if he had turned into a towering ancient tree, standing on the vast earth, with roots rooted thousands of miles away. The greenwood spirit body is done. He immediately used the ancient wood longevity technique to inhale and exhale the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Suddenly, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him, that is, energy particles, poured into his meridians from his acupoints at twice the speed just now. The greenwood spirit body is indeed a qualitative change. Although the speed of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth at this time is twice that of just now. However, it has increased by more than 100 times compared to before he started practicing. But I don't know what level of wizard qualification I have in the wizard world with the speed of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But if you want to test your wizard qualification, you have to go to the wizard academy or wizard school registered in the kingdom. Or, he could buy a crystal ball with the test qualification by himself. However, he heard that this crystal ball was made of precious magic crystal. There are only 5 wizard academies in the huge kingdom. Most of the other wizard academies in the kingdom only have 1. This shows how expensive this crystal ball is. Ronan thought for a while and stopped worrying about his wizard level. He collected his mind and began to practice the ancient wood longevity technique. He felt the joy of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth rushing into his body. In his heart, he secretly looked forward to the next Dharma body, Yimu Dharma body. Chapter 77, King of the Dead Plane, second update. After achieving the King Mu spirit body, the increase in physical state seems to have increased. Ronan felt something in his heart, so he called out Hang Meng and adjusted his physical state. You have gained the blessing of the heart of nature, current state. Plant affinity, status effect, when next to plants, strength, spirit, and mana are increased, amplification ratio. 30%, amplification range. 100 meters, the increase ratio reached 30%, more than twice the previous one. He felt that this might be because he achieved the King Mu spirit body and was closer to nature. The blessing of the heart of nature on him would be greater. After practicing the ancient wood longevity exercise for more than 3 hours, Ronan wanted to take a break, so he slowly stopped. After achieving the King Mu spirit body, he always felt that his body had a strange affinity with the spiritual plants and magic plants in the botanical garden. Suddenly, he wanted to know whether the wood witchcraft would change after achieving the King Mu spirit body. So, he used the ancient wood's longevity magic power and injected it into the witchcraft model of entanglement. Instantly, he felt the wood energy particles in the air converge towards him. He moved his mind, and a dark green light lit up on the palm of his right hand. Then, several thick and strong vines burst out from the dark green light between his palms and entangled in the air. Even without soil, I can still perform the entanglement spell. Ronan thought to himself, controlling the vines that continued to extend in the air all the way out of the botanical garden and into the living room. The vines extended to the dining table, and under his control, they entangled the handle of the copper wine pot. Ronan controlled the vines to pour the copper wine pot and poured a glass of wine into the wine glass beside him. The glass of wine was full and about to overflow. Ronan moved his mind, and the vines put down the copper wine pot, let go of the handle, and then entangled the copper wine glass. He controlled the vines, and brought the wine glass steadily to him. Not a drop of the wine was spilled. After taking a sip of the wine, Ronan thought that after the King Mu's spirit body was formed, the range and control accuracy of the entanglement technique were greatly improved. In this way, the wood armor technique and the healing technique should also be improved. Ronan thought of this, and cast the wood armor technique. As soon as he thought of it, a dark green light flashed across his body, and in the blink of an eye, his body was covered with wood armor. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, he knew that the wood armor was much thicker than before, and it contained a stronger vitality than before. He withdrew his magic power, and the wood armor dissipated immediately. Then, he injected the magic power into the witchcraft model of the healing technique. After the King Mu's spirit body was formed, he felt that his body was filled with an unprecedented vitality. Now, when he cast the healing technique, this vitality is even more vigorous. It seems that this vitality is recovery power. If I get injured, I will recover faster than before. Ronan put away the healing technique and looked out the window, seeing the sunset dyeing the street red. He thought that he had been in seclusion for many days, and today he had achieved the King Mu's spirit body, so he had to celebrate. Let's go out for a meal. Thinking of this, he missed honey wine and beef pineapple pie again. After Ronan was dressed, he walked out of the bungalow. While looking at the scenery on the street, he walked towards the wild beer bar. As he was walking, he suddenly felt something in his heart, so he looked up. He saw several lines flashing above the sky dyed red by the sunset, and waves of energy waves burst out from it. This line looked familiar to Ronan. It was 4 or 5 points similar to the extended magic line in space witchcraft. Perhaps this line is also a space magic line. Ronan's eyes followed the line that kept jumping in the air. Finally, the line passed over the sky of the Triumph City and flashed over the sky of the Upper City. Then, Ronan saw the lines open a dark crack. Several blood-stained figures were thrown out of the crack and fell towards the Upper City. What happened? This scene was not only seen by Ronan. Some sharp-eyed people, including wizard apprentices and knights, also saw it. These people couldn't help but walk towards the Upper City to see what happened. Ronan retracted his gaze and continued to walk towards the wild beer bar. Compared to watching the excitement, he chose to eat. After entering the wild beer bar, he swept his eyes. Seeing that Paul was not here, he found an empty seat at random, called the bartender, and ordered food and wine. While waiting, a blonde woman wearing gorgeous palace clothes and a hot body twisted and walked over. Ronan heard Paul talk about this outfit. This palace dress was modified from the dress of Princess Lanel, a famous beauty in Triumph City. Some women in brothels specially wore Princess Lanel's dress to attract customers. Ronan waved his hand, and the woman walked away tactfully. At this time, Ronan saw that the door of the bar opened, and Paul walked in. After Paul came in, he glanced around the bar and saw Ronan. His eyes lit up, and he immediately walked towards Ronan. After walking past the woman in gorgeous palace dress, he patted the woman's naked tight buttocks with his hand. Then, he walked to Ronan and sat down. Ronan, something big happened. As soon as Paul sat down, he whispered in Ronan's ear. What's wrong? Ronan asked, wondering if it was related to the space magic pattern and the bloody figure he had just seen. Paul said, didn't you ask me to help you keep an eye out for wizards who delve into space magic these days? I asked about Milan Quentin, the Void Walker, and learned that he and his 2 students went to the wizard ruins. And just now, they came back. They were injured and covered in blood, and they came back using space magic. I asked about them, and found out that they escaped from the wizard ruins. Wizard Milan said that the wizard ruins were actually the remains left by a necromancer, and there were many witchcraft formations involving the field of death. In addition to us white wizards, wizards from the Necromancer Society also went there. When they arrived at the wizard ruins, it was like returning home. They used the witchcraft formations in the wizard ruins to kill many wizards and wizard apprentices. They used the blood of those wizards and wizard apprentices as ritual materials, and opened a passage to the dead plane through a witchcraft formation in the ruins, and lured a king level dead creature from the dead plane and a large group of dead creatures over. Wizard Bay was immediately caught in a tough battle. After Wizard Millen found his friends and students, he used the space witchcraft formation he had set up along the way to jump all the way back. Chapter 78, The Evil Repelling Talisman. The third update. The news of the remains of the necromancer soon spread in Triumph City. In the next few days, when Ronan went out for dinner, he heard a lot about the remains of the necromancer. The most heard thing was that the legendary wizard of the kingdom, Dalifer Augustus, cast a high-level sorcery to destroy the king-level creatures of the undead plane, and joined other wizards to destroy the army of undead creatures, and finally destroyed the passage to the undead plane. Although the wizards of the kingdom are committed to finding a passage to another plane to obtain resources from another plane, however, the passage they are looking for is usually unknown to the existence of the other plane. The wizards of the kingdom will quietly pass through that passage and plunder resources. This opened passage has been known to the creatures of the undead plane. Once they pass through, what is waiting for them may be the powerful force of the undead plane. At present, the goal of the wizards of the kingdom is to prevent the creatures of the undead plane from invading. Because the exit of this passage is closest to the Dawn continent, if the undead creatures come out of this passage, the first to be hit will be the Dawn continent. However, to the regret of the wizards, the leader of the Undead Society, who was called Holy Lord by the wizards of the Undead Society, escaped. This Holy Lord took advantage of the legendary wizard Dalifer's war with the monarch-level undead creatures to cast witchcraft, and took away the souls of the dead wizards in the ruins. After hearing this news, the people of the Kingdom of Valant were in a panic for a while. The wizards of the Undead Society are proficient in making skeletons, rotten corpses and vengeful spirits. Moreover, the strength of these three undead creatures is related to their strength in life. In the past, most of the creatures of the Undead Society only collected the corpses and souls of ordinary people to create three types of undead creatures. Therefore, the undead creatures they created were not very scary. Now, they have the souls of wizards, and the wizards have strong mental power, so the vengeful spirits they create must be fierce. People in the Kingdom of Valant are afraid of being harmed by vengeful spirits. After hearing the news, Ronan thought of the evil repelling talisman. I wonder if the evil repelling talisman is useful for creatures in the dead plane. Ronan decided to give it a try. He immediately went to the market and bought several chickens and several stacks of parchment. After bringing them back to the bungalow, he cut the parchment into the size of talisman paper. Then, he killed the chicken and bled it. He took out all the tools for drawing talismans. First, he mixed chicken blood with cinnabar to make talisman ink. Then, he picked up the wolf hair brush, dipped it in the talisman ink, and began to draw talismans. The evil repelling talisman is a first level medium quality talisman. For him, drawing it is not a difficult task. Ronan dipped the pen full of talisman ink and wrote on the parchment. Energy particles gathered at the tip of the pen. The talisman head, talisman core, and talisman foot were completed in one go. Soon, there was a flash of light at the end of the talisman foot. Ronan summoned Hung Meng and adjusted the value. Evil repelling talisman, 56% for beginners. Just by drawing the first one, the progress of the entry level has reached 56%. This is the analogy. Ronan thought for a while, then collected his mind, and continued to draw the talisman. The next day, Ronan traveled to the world of immortal cultivation, and came to an uninhabited forest, recalling the method of summoning undead creatures. After he killed a wizard apprentice of the Necromancer Society in the wizard world, he got a book notes on creatures in the undead plane from the apprentice, which recorded the summoning magic array formulas of skeletons and corpses. In the notes, it is said that the combat power of skeletons is equivalent to that of a first level wizard apprentice. The combat power of corpses is equivalent to that of a second level wizard apprentice. These two undead creatures are melee creatures. The reason why they have such strong combat power is that they can resist witchcraft attacks to a certain extent. If the skeleton is within 5 meters of the first level wizard apprentice, I'm afraid that the first level wizard apprentice's witchcraft has not yet dispersed the skeleton before it is killed by the skeleton. In addition to the notes he got from the apprentice of the necromancer, he also got a book of witchcraft, which recorded the bone meditation method. The witchcraft book said that practicing the bone meditation method would enhance the perception of the necromancer plane and gain affinity with the necromancer plane. First, less magic power would be consumed when summoning undead creatures. Second, because of the affinity with the necromancer plane, the summoned undead creatures would not choose the summoning wizard as the first target of attack, but would attack other humans. Third, it would be easier to sign a contract with the creatures of the necromancer plane. Ronan summoned the undead creatures just to test the power of the evil repelling talisman, not to attack others. As for the use of the ancient wood longevity mana to summon, it would consume a lot, but he was not worried about it. After all, he didn't summon it often. Moreover, he had 2 natal longevity trees and achieved the King Mu spirit body, which absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth much faster, and the speed of mana recovery also increased accordingly. Ronan thought about it and immediately used the power of the ancient wood longevity, chanting obscure words. Immediately, his power was released and slowly constructed a witchcraft formation in the air. This witchcraft formation has some shadows of space magic patterns. This witchcraft that summons undead creatures is both necromancy and space witchcraft. As Ronan chanted, he felt that the power of the ancient wood longevity was not consumed very quickly. Ronan couldn't help but feel puzzled. After thinking about it, he felt that, because the ancient wood longevity skill is a wood skill, it contains the truth of the growth of plants and trees, and there is a way of withering and flourishing. Flourish means life, withering means death. Perhaps, it is the power of withering in the ancient wood longevity power that fits the necromancy. Because it was the first time to cast it, Ronan's casting speed was not fast. After 3 minutes, the witchcraft formation was constructed. A formation like a hexagram, covered with magic patterns, formed 5 meters in front of Ronan. Then, a ball of white light rose from the formation. Then, the white light faded, revealing a skeleton holding a bone knife. The skeleton was quite tall, at least 2 meters tall. 2 balls of blue flames burned in the skeleton's empty eye sockets. As soon as it came to this world, it turned its head and looked at Ronan. Suddenly, the blue flames in the empty eye sockets became stronger. It was like a hungry beast that saw blood, and it stepped forward, holding the bone knife, and rushed towards Ronan. Ronan immediately took out a talisman to ward off evil, and clamped it between the index and middle fingers of his right hand. With a wave of his arm, he threw the talisman. Ronan has mastered the talisman to the level of mastery. As soon as the skeleton saw the talisman, its tall body shrank slightly, as if it was very afraid of the power of the talisman. It was still rushing forward, but it leaned forward slightly to avoid the talisman. But Ronan kept using his mental power, pointed his finger, and the evil repelling talisman suddenly folded in the air and shot towards the skeleton. The skeleton was unable to dodge, and the evil repelling talisman stuck to its head. Snap. At the moment, when the evil repelling talisman stuck to the skull, a powerful force erupted deep in the skeleton's body. With a slight sound, the skeleton's entire body exploded, and the skull, ribs, and leg bones shot in all directions. Chapter 79, Reshuffle of the Wizarding Family, 4th update. Ronan slapped a few amulets on himself, and picked up the skull on the ground. The skeleton's empty eye sockets looked at him dimly. The flames in them had gone out. After Ronan confirmed that the evil repelling amulet had killed the skeleton, he used a few fire amulets to burn all the remains of the skeleton. After slapping a few cleaning amulets on himself, he left the forest. Knowing that the evil repelling amulet was indeed useful for undead creatures, Ronan drank the primary transformation potion and went to the Guld Forest, a monster forest outside the Triumph City, and began to hunt monsters. The fur and blood of monsters were used to make amulet pens, amulet skins, and amulet ink. The evil repelling amulets drawn in this way were even more powerful. He sacrificed 2 kingling swords and performed the sword shadow spectroscopy. 6 green flying swords surrounded him, emitting sharp sword energy. He used the magnetic torrent to generate a magnetic field all over his body, which repelled the Earth's magnetic field and lifted him off the ground and floated up. Then, he flew around the periphery of the Guld Forest, searching for magic beasts. With his current strength, he could kill a first level magic beast with just a wave of his hand. he released his spiritual sense, and a spiritual wave that covered an area of 300 meters with him as the center spread out in all directions. While searching for magic beasts with his spiritual sense, he kept an eye out for other people nearby. After more than 2 hours, Ronan avoided 2 teams of wizard apprentices and knights who were hunting magic beasts, and then hunted 3 magic beasts. After collecting magic beast materials and cleaning the traces with a cleaning talisman, he left the Guld Forest. Ronan decided to process the magic beast materials in a small town mansion in the Welly Kingdom in the secular world of the Zeuxan world. In the rooms of this mansion, racks were set up one by one, and pieces of animal skins that he had processed were hung on them. The animal skins were dark yellow, slightly translucent, and smooth to the touch. He also made the talisman pen and talisman ink. When the animal skin is completely dried, you can draw talismans. While the animal skin is drying, Ronan returns to the wizard world and continues to work on the evil repelling talisman. After 3 days, he has reached the master level of the evil repelling talisman due to his constant drawing of talismans. During this period, he has heard a lot of news from the wizard world. First of all, the wizard families are quietly reshuffling. Some wizard families suffered heavy losses when exploring the remains of the necromancers. The backbone of the family died in the remains. As a result, other wizard families plundered some of the resources they occupied, and those declining families did not dare to resist. Most of the houses in the middle city are actually the residences of the children of wizard families. Most of them are wizard families from other places outside the Triumph City. They come here to practice wizardry and seek development. After all, Triumph City has the most wizard organizations and the most abundant types of practice resources. These days, he has seen most of the children of wizard families move out of the middle city sadly. I think something happened to the family and they can no longer stay in Triumph City. In addition, the reshuffle of wizard organizations is roughly similar to that of wizard families. Ronan walked on the street and saw several strongholds of wizard organizations, which were closed and looked desolate. It is estimated that the backbone of the wizard organization died or was seriously injured in the exploration of the ruins, so that the strength of the wizard organization was greatly reduced and it had to withdraw from Triumph City. Ronan thought that Triumph City gathered wizards from all sides of the kingdom, and what happened in it must be a microcosm of the entire kingdom of Valant. Perhaps, wizard organizations and wizard families across the kingdom are also experiencing a reshuffle. Glory Castle, Valant Palace, Meeting Side Hall. This side hall is located not far from the bedroom of Augustus V. It is the place where Augustus V and several other core royal ministers held a small meeting. Augustus V is also a wizard, but he is at the level of elite wizards. Formal wizards are divided into several levels. Ordinary formal wizards are level 1, and elite wizards are level 2. Augustus V's great uncle, the legendary wizard of the kingdom, Darlifer Augustus, is a level 5 formal wizard. However, elite formal wizards can also live to be 150 years old. Augustus V is only in his 80s this year, and he still has a lot of time. Under the spell, his face is quite young, and he looks about 40 years old, but his hair is a little grey. This is because he often worries about the affairs of the kingdom. At this time, he is sitting above the long table. There are 5 people sitting on both sides of the long table. One is the chief of the royal guards, Elena Thorn, who is both a knight and a wizard. On the road of knighthood, he is a knight who is far ahead of others and has superb sword skills. His wizard talent is not bad, and he is now a level 3 formal wizard, a wizard of true knowledge. He practices wizardry mainly to strengthen his physical body so that he can go further on the road of knighthood. The other is the Minister of Finance, who is short and has a sharp face. Neither a wizard nor a knight, but he is good at math and has excellent communication skills and is very popular in the royal family. One is the Minister of Intelligence, a slightly fat man who comes from a wealthy businessman. Although he has no power, he has a wide network of contacts. It is said that he can also get in touch with the wizards of the Wizard Islands. The other two, one is the nephew of Augustus V, and the other is the eldest son of Augustus V, both of whom hold important positions in the royal family. However, these two people are not well maintained, and they look older than Augustus V. Tell me, what are the casualties of each wizard family in this ruins? Augustus V knocked on the long table with the ruby ring on his index finger, attracting everyone's attention, and then said, As soon as this was said, everyone looked at the Minister of Intelligence, waiting for his answer. The Minister of Intelligence looked at Augustus V and nodded respectfully. Then, he told Augustus V everything he knew. The more Augustus V listened, the gloomier his face became. After the Minister of Intelligence finished speaking, he said in a deep voice, "Most of the wizard families that suffered heavy losses in this relic are wizard families close to the royal family." After hearing this, the other 5 people did not show much surprise. Obviously, they also saw this. The power structure of the Kingdom of Valant is not a unified system, but a fiefdom system. Among the 7 wizard families, the Augustus family is the royal family, and the other 6 families are vassals. Although the Augustus family is powerful, the 6 families in various parts of the kingdom have knowledge in different fields and their witchcraft strength is also not weak. Because the Augustus family was afraid of the power of the other 6 families, they secretly supported some wizard families and wizard organizations. In order to strengthen the power of these families and organizations, they secretly weakened the power of the other 6 families for them. Augustus V glanced at the others and said, "It is obvious that one of the 6 major wizard families has colluded with the undead society. Their purpose is to overthrow the foundation of my Augustus family." Chapter 80, 9th level of key refining. The Changsheng sect is destroyed. After the hides were dried in the shade, Ronan brought them to the wizard world. He cut them into pieces the size of talismans, and drew talismans to ward off evil spirits on them. The spiritual energy in the secular world of the world of cultivation is thin, and when drawing talismans, it is impossible to gather spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in the wizard world is very rich. When the ancient wood longevity magic power is used and gathered at the tip of the talisman pen, the energy particles will gather like water flowing into a cave. It took Ronan most of the day to draw 200 master level talismans to ward off evil spirits. 100 of them were used by him to perform the initial earth control technique and integrated into the outer wall of the bungalow. Of the other 100, 20 were hidden in his clothes and 80 were stored in his storage black ring. With the talisman to ward off evil spirits, Ronan felt much more at ease. He immediately sat cross-legged in the botanical garden, and his heart moved. The mother tree of his natal longevity tree immediately released the light golden light of the holy tree. Then, he used the ancient wood longevity technique and practiced. With the blessing of the King Mu spirit and the light of the holy tree, Ronan's speed of refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth increased greatly. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him, along with his breathing, poured into his meridians from his acupoints, and then was refined into mana by him. The mist-like green mana in the danshan spun, and gradually became thicker. 5 days passed without knowing it. Triumph City seemed to be fine. At least in Ronan's eyes, Triumph City had not changed. It seemed that the reshuffle of the wizard family had ended. After the reshuffle, the wizard family and wizard organization occupied their new territory and resources, and started a new life. Early in the morning, Ronan installed curtains on the only window of the botanical garden. Although the windows of the botanical garden were high, there were no tall buildings near Ronan's bungalow. Generally speaking, no one could see everything in his botanical garden through his window. But for the sake of safety, he still installed curtains. When he was practicing, he needed his natal immortal tree to release the light of the holy tree. Although there are many glowing magic plants in the wizard world, Ronan still doesn't want others to know that this tree can glow. The books in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy record the sunlight magic pattern. The curtains were drawn in the botanical garden, and there was no sunlight. Ronan engraved the sunlight magic pattern on 5 magic stones called sunstone. This magic stone can amplify the power of light-based witchcraft. Ronan laid 5 sunstones, engraved with sunlight magic pattern, on the 4 walls and ceiling. The sunstones emit sunlight, illuminating the entire botanical garden. The mother tree of the natal immortal tree is growing vigorously, and its branches continue to extend, forming a large-scale emerald green canopy. At this time, the natal immortal tree emits a light golden holy tree light, which looks quite sacred. The entire botanical garden and Ronan are covered with a layer of light gold. Ronan sits cross-legged under the natal immortal tree, clasping his hands and placing them on his legs. The verdant ancient wood immortality power swirled in his dinshan. Ronan felt that there was a vitality brewing in his dinshan. This was a sign of a breakthrough in the realm of cultivation. Suddenly, a force suddenly erupted in his dantian and spread to his limbs. The mist-like ancient wood immortality power in his dantian became more concentrated. Breakthrough. Ronan slowly finished his work, summoned Hang Meng, and adjusted his own values. Lifespan. 256 strength. 16 spirit. 42 mana. 25 cultivation realm, 9th level of key refining wizard level, 3rd level wizard apprentice skills, ancient wood longevity skill, 12th level 12%, greenwood sword skill, 6th level 23%, yanshen skill, proficient 35%, talisman. Flying Sword Talisman, Grandmaster 81%, Golden Armor Talisman, Master 35%, Wine Chasing Talisman, Master 31%, Exorcism Talisman, Master 6%, Expand, Witchcraft, Entanglement, Master 53%, Wood Armor, Master 12%, Healing, Master 16%, Rapid Growth, Master 2%, Magnetic Torrent, Proficient 68%, Light Recovery, Proficient 2%. Expand Knowledge, Magic Plant Science, Master 23%, Alchemy, Master 2%, Expand, Potion, Growth Green Liquid, Master 12%, Primary Transfiguration Potion, Mastery 12%, Expand. Magic Pattern, Extended Magic Pattern, Mastery 35%, Sharp Magic Pattern, Mastery 25%, Armor Breaking Magic Pattern, Mastery 23%, Expand. Ronan learned from the secret book Ancient Wood Longevity Art that there are 12 levels of key refining. After key refining, it is the foundation building. But Ancient Wood Longevity Art does not mention the foundation building. Ronan thought that it only took him about a year to cultivate to the 9th level of key refining. It should be soon to cultivate to the peak of key refining. He has to prepare for the foundation building and understand how to build the foundation. Thinking of this, Ronan used his spirit to converge the holy tree light of his lifelong tree. Then, with a thought in his mind, he traveled to the world of cultivation. Ronan's figure appeared in a small town mansion in the Wei Kingdom in the secular world. After changing into the clothes of the world of cultivation, he headed towards the direction of the immortal realm of Huan's insect. After passing through the mist array and entering the immortal realm of Huan's insect, Ronan visited the market in the Shanty area. Perhaps he could buy books about foundation building in the market. After all, foundation building is not a secret. After entering the market, he saw that the market was still messy but bustling. On both sides of the muddy road, there were stalls of all kinds. The stall owners moved a small stool or just spread a piece of cloth to sit. Shouts and price cuts converged in the market. Hey, come and see. The first grade top grade magic weapon, the purple Aluo blade, can kill a cultivator in the late stage of key refining with one blow. Come, look here. The Changsheng Sect's exercises are on sale. Changsheng Sect's exercises? Ronan's eyes lit up when he heard this. The last time he came to the immortal realm of the Huanzhen sect, he knew that the disciples of the Huanzhen sect had learned that the life of the Yuanying patriarch of the Changsheng sect was about to end, and they forcibly recruited many cultivators from the cultivation families in the mansion area to attack the Changsheng sect. But he didn't know what the result of that attack was. Ronan immediately cupped his fists to a monk who was walking by and said, "My fellow Taoist, I have something to ask you." The monk was a man in his 40s, dressed in Confucian clothes. Seeing Ronan cupping his fists, he returned the greeting. "I don't deserve your advice, but we should teach each other. Please go ahead." Ronan then asked, "I wonder what happened to the Huanzhen sect's attack on the Changsheng sect?" The Confucian monk smiled slightly. "Has the Taoist gone to the secular world for a while? This matter has spread throughout the Huanzhen sect's fairyland 5 days ago. It is said that during the attack, the Changsheng sect's Yuanying ancestor died, and the Changsheng sect could no longer stop the Huanzhen sect's attack. The Changsheng sect's spiritual veins and the Changsheng sect's fairyland have been occupied by the Huanzhen sect. The Changsheng sect, the sect with the longest history, is finally gone. Thank you." Ronan cupped his fists to the monk. The Confucian monk also cupped his fists and walked away. Ronan's thoughts raced. The Changsheng sect is destroyed. So who will get the legendary Earth Immortal method that the Changsheng sect's ancestors practiced? He thought as he walked towards the stall that was shouting and selling Changsheng sect's skills. Fellow Daoists, come here and take a look. All my skills were obtained from friends who attacked the Changsheng sect. They are absolutely true. The stall owner sat on a stool and shouted loudly. This gimmick attracted many people. Many people squatted down and flipped through the books placed on a piece of linen. My fellow Daoist, you are not kind. After a cultivator flipped through the books, he said, look, these thick earth dew, Changcheng Gong, Ziki guiding technique, are just ordinary key refining stage skills, right? What kind of Changsheng sect skills are these? They are obviously obtained by looting the casual cultivators of the Changsheng sect's fairyland, right? Yes, fellow Daoist, it's not good for you to do business like this. Some cultivators who had also read the secret books said one after another. The stall owner was criticized by the monks, but he didn't look embarrassed at all. But the skills here are all 5 element. If you have children, the skills you practice may not be suitable for your children to practice. You can choose one here. That's right. Some monks suddenly felt that it made sense and squatted down to choose secret books. The stall owner said again, besides, the skills I have here are not the skills of the immortal cultivators of the Changsheng sect. Look at those books. I heard from my friends that they were taken from the corpses of the Changsheng sect's key refining monks. The stall owner pointed, and the monk's attention went to the secret books. A cultivator flipped through these books, only reading the contents at the beginning, and said, it seems that these key refining methods are also very ordinary. The stall owner said, to be honest fellow Taoists, what can be sold here is definitely not a top-notch method. The top-notch methods have long been taken away by the Xiuxin family and the Huanzin sect. However, these methods are sect methods after all. Although ordinary, they have subsequent methods. Everyone, if you practice these sect methods and reach the foundation building stage, you can search for the subsequent foundation building methods of these methods after entering the Xiuxin family or the Huanzin sect. If you only practice your own methods, if there are no subsequent methods, you will have to switch to other methods after the foundation building stage. That's right. Some cultivators felt that the stall owner made sense, so they continued to choose with great interest. Ronan squeezed forward while listening to the conversation of the crowd. When he arrived at the stall, he also squatted down and looked through the methods on it. In addition to the techniques, there were also several spells on the stalls. However, they were all small 5-element spells below the first order mid-grade, which were not what Ronan wanted now. Ronan wandered around this market for a while, and seeing nothing he liked, he went to other markets. After wandering around 2 more markets, he finally found a book titled Theory of Foundation Building on a street stall. The cover was worn out, and no one knew how many times it had been flipped through by others. Ronan picked it up and flipped through it, only to find that it only had the cover, and even the first page was blank. Fellow Daoist, why is there no trial version of this book? Ronan asked the stall owner. The stall owner scratched his face. It is clearly written on the cover of this book that it is about foundation building. If you are interested, I will give you a low-grade spirit stone. Chapter 81, Foundation Building. Body Cultivation Method. As Ronan thought, the common sense of foundation building is not secret. So this book can only be sold for 1 low-grade spirit stone at most. 1 low-grade spirit stone is the lowest price among the secret books of cultivation. Ronan immediately gave the stall owner 1 low-grade spirit stone. Then, the stall owner took out an old book from the bag behind him and handed it to Ronan. Ronan took it and saw the words Foundation Building Theory written on the cover of the book. The book is not thick, only about 40 pages. Opening the first page, you will know that the whole book is a cultivator's opinion on foundation building. This cultivator called himself Illusion Taoist in the book and said that he had reached the peak of key refining. The author of the book, Taoist Kang Hun, first talked about the age level of cultivation. He said in it that it is best to build the foundation before the age of 80. Although, cultivators who have reached the peak of key refining can generally live about 120 years. but according to what he inquired and his observations over the years, the success rate of cultivators who built their foundation before the age of 80 was much higher than those who built their foundation after the age of 80. The author also said in the book that, although there were cultivators who built their foundation after the age of 80, they were very few. Building a foundation requires a lot of resources. Some cultivators over the age of 80 fought for resources in order to build their foundation, but died early and did not live to the peak of key refining, which is 120 years old. The author advised in the book that, if you have not built your foundation after the age of 80, you should not worry about it. It is better to use the last few decades to become a national teacher in the secular dynasty and enjoy yourself. Enjoying for decades is not in vain for decades of hard work in the fairyland. After all, as long as you reach the middle stage of key refining, you can almost dominate the secular world. With such strength, you can live in a high-rise building in the secular world, while live in a shanty in the shanty area, or an ordinary mansion in the mansion area. Taoist Kanghuan talked about his views on the age level of foundation building. I don't know if this person hasn't established his foundation after he turned 80 and thus wasted decades of time on cultivation. After the foundation building age barrier, Taoist Kanghuan began to talk about the three major barriers of foundation building. The first barrier is the physical barrier. The first prerequisite for a person who builds a foundation is a strong physique and sufficient blood and qi in the body. Muscles, bones, internal organs, etc. must not have hidden injuries when building the foundation. If the blood and qi are insufficient, or the physique is not strong, or there are hidden injuries, the foundation will be broken at the last moment. The second barrier is the mana barrier. Only when the mana exceeds a certain limit can the foundation be successfully established. The third barrier is the spiritual barrier. The spirit of the cultivator must also reach a certain level in order to maintain self-esteem in the midst of delusion and illusion when building the foundation, and to command the blood and mana of the whole body to complete the foundation together. Taoist Kanghuan said in the book that in today's world of cultivating immortals, the methods of reaching the mana barrier and the spiritual barrier are not very difficult. As long as you continue to practice some key refining techniques, if you have a decent talent for cultivation, you can reach the magic power and spiritual barriers. As for the physical barrier, it is more difficult for today's cultivators to reach it. It is said that when the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was still very abundant in the world of cultivation, the resources between heaven and earth were abundant. At that time, when the cultivators were practicing the techniques, they would refine the rare treasures between heaven and earth into medicine. While practicing, they took the medicine. When practicing, they refined the medicine power and acted on their own flesh so as to strengthen their physique and blood. Unfortunately, nowadays, there are too few resources in heaven and earth, and most of them are in the hands of the sect. As a result, it is extremely difficult for these casual cultivators to reach the qi and blood barrier. Taoist Kanghuan said in the book that now, if you want to reach the qi and blood barrier, he knows of two ways. One is to find a way to get the qi and blood medicine, take the medicine, and strengthen the qi and blood. But the qi and blood medicine is not easy to get, and this method requires taking a lot of qi and blood medicine. The second is to practice the method of physical cultivation. However, these cultivators do not spend enough time practicing qigong every day, and practicing physical cultivation will slow down their progress. In the book, Taoist Kanghuan also said that, even if the three levels of physique, mana, and consciousness are all up to standard, it is not necessarily possible to successfully build a foundation. To increase the probability of successful foundation building, one is to continuously strengthen the physique, mana, and consciousness, and the other is to take a pill that can increase the probability of foundation building, the foundation building pill. After taking the foundation building pill, when building the foundation, the body's qi, blood, mana, and spirit will be improved in a short time and cooperate with each other, thereby greatly increasing the probability of successful foundation building for the cultivator. However, it is extremely difficult to obtain the foundation building pill. First of all, the recipe of the foundation building pill is firmly controlled by the immortal family and the sect. Secondly, the medicinal materials for refining the foundation building pill are also extremely difficult to obtain. These medicinal materials are almost all planted on the spiritual veins of the sect. Finally, even if an ordinary casual cultivator spent a lot of effort and used great means to obtain the recipe of the foundation building pill and the medicinal materials for refining the pill, he still faced the problem of difficulty in refining the pill. The steps of refining the foundation building pill are complicated, and the control of furnace temperature and time is extremely high. Therefore, the success rate of refining the foundation building pill is also extremely low. Perhaps, a casual cultivator, who has worked hard to obtain the pill recipe and medicinal materials, refines it himself, or asks an alchemist to refine it. Once he fails, all these efforts will be wasted. Taoist Kang Huan also said that obtaining the foundation building pill sometimes depends on chance. Sects and immortal cultivation families have foundation building pills. When sects and immortal cultivation families fall, foundation building pills will flow out. If there is a chance, a peak key refining cultivator may be able to get it. Ronan stood in front of the stall and flipped through the book on the spot. After seeing that the book was indeed true, he turned and left. As he walked, he was thinking about the foundation building. Although his strength increased after practicing the ancient wood longevity technique, it was not much. Instead, his spirit and mana increased a lot. If he wanted to successfully build his foundation, he had to train his strength to break through the physical barrier. In his mind, he immediately thought of several ways to improve the strength of the physical body. The night breathing method, bloodline transformation technique, energy particle amplification, etc. in the wizard world can all transform the physical body. However, the night breathing method should not be effective quickly, similar to the inner strength of the secular world and the world of immortal cultivation. Otherwise, the knights of the kingdom of Valant who practiced the night breathing method would not have accepted bloodline transformation and energy particle body quenching later. Bloodline transformation is not only risky, but may also change a person's mind. This is not within his consideration. As for energy particle amplification, he learned from the books in the library that if a wizard apprentice performs energy particle amplification, it may cause harm to his body. The key to building the physical barrier of the foundation is that the body cannot have hidden injuries. If he used energy particles to amplify himself, although it would strengthen his physique, if he left hidden injuries, his efforts would fail. However, I have healing skills and light recovery. Maybe I can heal hidden injuries. Ronan thought for a while and made a decision. He had to try to find the method of physical cultivation, the blood and key medicine, and the foundation building pill first. At the same time, try whether the energy particle amplification is feasible. He didn't see the method of physical cultivation, the blood and key medicine, and the foundation building pill in the market. So, he walked towards the mansion area. Ronan paid the money and entered the east area of the mansion. Then, he walked towards the Jubeo building. Behind the Jubeo building is the Lin family, the first immortal cultivation family in the east area of the mansion. It is a place for buying and selling immortal cultivation items. The things inside are basically not fake, because they are guaranteed by the Lin family. However, the price is not cheap. After Ronan walked in, a waiter immediately came to greet him. Ronan swept his spiritual sense, and knew that this waiter was a cultivator of the third level of key refining. This level of cultivation is considered medium in the Shanti area, but in the mansion area, it is the bottom. Sir, what do you need? Ronan immediately ignored the topic and went straight to the point. I wonder if Jubeo Lao has any body cultivation methods, blood and key medicine, or things related to foundation building pills for sale. The clerk was not surprised after hearing this, as if many cultivators had come to Jubeo Lao to ask about these things before. Sir, please wait a moment, I will go find the supervisor. After saying that, the clerk asked Ronan to sit down at a tea table and brewed spiritual tea for Ronan. Then, he hurried upstairs to find the supervisor. Not long after, Ronan smelled a fragrant breeze. Turning his head, he saw a woman with a graceful figure and beautiful face walking down the stairs. Ronan scanned with his spiritual sense and knew that the woman was at the 8th level of key refining. My fellow Taoist, I'm Shizi, the steward of the Lin family. The woman bowed to Ronan and sat down on the other side of the tea table. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water, and she cast a calm gaze on Ronan. Just now, I heard from the waiter that fellow Taoist needs something to build his foundation. Ronan nodded. Shizi continued, excuse me, but I wonder what level of key refining you are at now? Ronan frowned slightly, none of this has anything to do with you. Just ask if there are any things for foundation building. Shizi did not look embarrassed, but smiled slightly. The Lin family is now recruiting powerful cultivators. I see that you look young. If your age is similar to your appearance, and you have already cultivated to the 8th level of key refining, the Lin family will welcome you to join. When the time comes, the Lin family will also arrange for your foundation building. Ronan's expression did not change, but he said, what you mean, fellow Daoist, is that after I join the Lin family will be able to give me key and blood medicine and foundation building pills. Shizi smiled again, fellow Daoist, I never said that. Besides, I'm just a deacon in the Lin family. If you join the Lin family, I don't know how the Lin family will arrange for you. What I said just now was just told to me by the Lin family members. If you are interested in joining the Lin family, I can help you convey it to the Lin family. Ronan leaned back in his chair and said, we will consider joining later. Do you have the 3 things I mentioned here? Shizi said, the key and blood medicine and the foundation building pill ingredients or recipes are quite precious. The Lin family is unlikely to sell them. We do have a book on the body cultivation method. It was obtained by the Lin family when they followed the Huanzhen sect and attacked the Changsheng sect. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Green Lotus and White Lotus Power. Can you show it to me? Ronan asked. Of course. Shizi clapped his white hands together, making 2 snapping sounds. The waiter came over from the counter in the front hall, lowered his head slightly, and waited for instructions. Shizi said, bring the Green Lotus and White Arxenoid skill to this Taoist friend to have a look. The waiter replied yes and went upstairs. Not long after, he took down a small wooden box made of sandalwood and handed it to Shizi. Shizi took it, pushed it with his hand, opened the top board of the small wooden box, and revealed a book inside. The book was brand new, and it was obviously a handwritten copy. Shizi took out the book and respectfully presented it to Ronan with both hands. Ronan saw the 5 words Green Lotus and White Arxenoid skill written on the cover of the handwritten copy. Ronan flipped through it casually at first, and knew that this secret book only had the first few pages. He thought that even in the best Jubeo building in the mansion area, he could only read the first few pages. Generally speaking, the first few pages of this kind of martial arts book can only be an overview. How to practice, and what conditions are needed for practice, will only be shown in the following content. In today's world of cultivation, where resources are scarce, some conditions may not be met. Seeing Ronan's move, Shizi also guessed what Ronan was thinking, and said, Dao, this secret book, the first few pages, say that after practicing this technique, you can not only strengthen your physique, but also enhance your body's recovery ability. If you practice it deeply, you can also repair hidden injuries. Ronan looked at the first few pages, and found that its content was not bad from what Shizi summarized, so he thought, if such a powerful secret book is simply an excellent method to pass the foundation building physical barrier, would the Lin family be willing to sell it? Although selling handwritten copies can make a lot of money, it is obviously more beneficial for the Lin family to keep it hidden, and only let their own clansmen practice it, which increases the probability of their clansmen building the foundation, and improves the family's strength. As Ronan's thoughts raced, Shizi continued, of course, the conditions for practicing this secret book are also a bit harsh. Ronan looked at Shizi. Shizi smiled slightly. The Lin family's business here is naturally different from the market in the shantytown. The quality of a secret book will be told to customers, and it is up to the customers to decide whether to buy it. What are the harsh conditions for practicing? Ronan said. Shizi said, to practice this technique, you have to practice in a place with rich spiritual energy, and you have to swallow tonic medicine while practicing. But, you know that resources are scarce in the world of immortal cultivation nowadays. If there is no spiritual energy and external medicine to assist, the practice will be much slower. Someone in the Lin family tried to practice this technique, but after 5 days of practice, they only made a little progress. It will probably take nearly 100 years to practice to the point where you can heal hidden injuries. Ronan was relieved after hearing this. The conditions for practicing were indeed harsh for the cultivators in the world of immortal cultivation. After all, the places with rich spiritual energy and the great medicine of heaven and earth are all occupied by the sect. Only the sect can practice this method of physical cultivation. No, not everyone in the sect can practice this method of physical cultivation. Although the sect occupies the spiritual vein, not every cultivator can occupy the spiritual spring eye on the spiritual vein. However, these conditions are very easy for him to achieve. After pretending to think for a while, Ronan asked, "How many spiritual stones do you need?" 3 medium-grade spiritual stones. Shizi said with her cherry lips slightly opened. Ronan frowned. "You just said that the conditions for practicing this green lotus and white arxenoids technique are harsh, and it's a handwritten copy. Selling it for 3 medium-grade spirit stones?" Shizi smiled slightly. "Fellow Daoist, if you are as old as you look, under 20 years old, or just over 20 years old, this technique will be very useful to you. When you practice it to the peak, perhaps it will be the time for you to build your foundation. At that time, you can use this technique to heal your hidden injuries and allow you to reach the physical barrier in the foundation building process. We in Jubeo Tower offer a price of 3 medium-grade spirit stones and refuse to bargain." Ronan waved his hands. "I only have 1 medium-grade spirit stone on me, and I can't afford these 3 medium-grade spirit stones." Shizi listened and was unmoved. "Fellow Daoist, I have said just now that we refuse to bargain for this secret book. If you don't have enough spirit stones, you can go and raise some. This secret book is a handwritten copy and will always be there. As long as you give enough spirit stones, we will give it to you. 2 medium-grade spirit stones," Ronan said. Shizi just smiled and did not bargain with Ronan. Ronan waited for a while, and seeing that Shizi was still unmoved, he stood up and said, "Forget it, I don't have enough spirit stones, so I won't buy it." Then he walked out of the Jubeo building. "Aching, see this Taoist friend off," Shizi said. The waiter who entertained Ronan came forward attentively and sent Ronan out. Ronan was thinking if he left, would Shizi lower the price, but this man still sent him away. Ronan walked out of the Jubeo building and came to the busy street. The waiter said goodbye again and walked back. Ronan walked into the crowd, thinking in his heart as he followed. The spirit stones he had in his hand were indeed not enough for 3 medium-grade spirit stones, but only 1 medium-grade spirit stone and 60 or so low-grade spirit stones. In addition to strengthening the body, the blue lotus and white lotus can also enhance recovery and cure hidden injuries. If he practices the blue lotus and white lotus, and adds the 2 witchcrafts of healing and light recovery, and then uses energy particles to amplify himself, it will be much safer. Although, according to Shizi, practicing the blue lotus and white lotus is enough to reach the physical level of the 3 levels of foundation building. However, foundation theory also mentioned that even if the physical, magical and spiritual levels reach the 3 levels of foundation building, it is not necessarily a success in foundation building. Instead, the stronger the physical, magical and spiritual levels, the greater the success rate of foundation building. In order to increase the success rate of foundation building, he must try his best to improve these 3 items. In addition to practicing the blue lotus and white lotus, he still wants to use the energy particle amplification method to further improve his physical strength. Earn spirit stones. Ronan thought. If you buy and sell master level talismans in the market, the speed of earning spirit stones will be too slow. Besides, the Changsheng sect, which had been fighting with the Huanzhen sect, had been destroyed by the Huanzhen sect. Now was a peaceful time, and the talismans could not be sold at a high price. After thinking for a while, Ronan planned to use a transformation potion to change his appearance, and then sell the master level first grade top grade talismans to the Chamber of Commerce in the mansion area. Most of the Chamber of Commerce in the east of the mansion were backed by the Lin family. He did not plan to sell talismans in the east of the mansion. Thinking of this, Ronan returned to the shanty area and bought some better quality talisman paper and a talisman pen made of tiger hair in the market. After buying some more ox blood, he left the Huanzhen sect's fairyland. His consciousness was stored in the 2 natal immortal trees in the botanical garden. Everything within a radius of 500 meters of the natal immortal tree was always in his mind. He sensed that no one had broken into his bungalow and there were no wizards nearby, so he moved his mind and traveled back. The next moment, his figure appeared in the botanical garden in the wizard world. After changing into the clothes of the wizard world, he walked towards his own laboratory. He walked to the side of the laboratory table, took out the talisman drawing materials from the storage black ring, placed them all on the laboratory table, and began to draw talismans. Talisman, Flying Sword Talisman, Grandmaster 81%, Golden Armor Talisman, Master 52%, Wind Chasing Talisman, Master 45%, Evil Repelling Talisman, Master 6%, Expand. Ronan's process of drawing talismans is also a process of grinding proficiency. He drew 100 master level golden armor talismans and 100 master level wind chasing talismans. The day and night in the wizard world and the immortal world are almost the same, but the proportion of day and night is different. At this time, it was late in the wizard world, and it was estimated that it would be almost evening in the immortal world. Ronan planned to go to the immortal world to sell talismans tomorrow morning. He put the talismans into the storage black ring, went out, found a restaurant, had dinner, and then returned to the botanical garden to practice the ancient wood longevity skill. The next day, Ronan traveled to the immortal world and entered the immortal realm of Huan's insect. First, he went to the southern area of the shed and then walked to the southern area of the mansion. The architecture and street style of the southern area of the mansion are similar to those of the eastern area of the mansion. After all, the buildings in the mansion area in the past were all inhabited by the descendants of the monks who founded the Huanzan sect. But later, when the Huanzan sect developed its fairyland, the mansion area was divided into multiple territories and 4 areas: east, west, south, and north. Ronan asked a passerby and found the chamber of commerce in the southern area of the mansion. The passerby said that the first immortal cultivation family in the southern area of the mansion was the Song family. Ronan followed what the passerby said and walked to the largest trading pavilion in the southern area of the mansion. This pavilion has 5 floors, and the plaque on the door reads Treasure Pavilion. Ronan first walked into an empty alley, released his spiritual consciousness, and changed his clothes. Then, he took out a bottle of primary transformation potion from the storage black ring and drank it. Then, he used his spirit to change his appearance. As his face moved, he turned into a man in his 40s, following the appearance of his leader in his previous life. His hairline moved up a lot, and his belly was slightly bulging. After the transformation was completed, Ronan smoothed the clothes on his belly, walked out of the deserted alley, and walked into the treasure pavilion. After an incense stick of time, Ronan got 2 medium-grade spirit stones and 10 low-grade spirit stones. He refused the request to join the Song family as a talisman master, swayed his fat body, walked out of the treasure pavilion, and went to the east district of the mansion. The east district and the south district of the mansion are not separated by a wall like the mansion area and the shanty area. The residents inside can come and go freely, but their household registration will still be in the area where they live. As for which area is the east district of the mansion, and which area is the south district of the mansion, it all depends on the cultivation families in the 2 areas. Who is more powerful, and can occupy more territory. After Ronan arrived at the east district of the mansion, he went straight to the Jubeo building. He used 3 middle grade spirit stones to buy the manuscript of Blue Lotus and White Lotus art. With the manuscript, he left the immortal realm of Huan's insect and returned to the wizard world. Chapter 83 Energy Particle Amplification Array. Ronan's figure appeared in the botanical garden. After changing into the clothes of the wizard world, he took out the secret book of Blue Lotus and White Lotus from the storage black ring. He sat down cross-legged under the natal longevity tree and flipped through it. After flipping through it, he knew that the Blue Lotus and White Lotus had a total of 20 levels. With each level, the physical energy, blood, and vitality of the flesh will be enhanced. When practicing to the 18th level, the vitality of the flesh is extremely strong. Even if there are hidden injuries in the body, it can be healed. When practicing to the 20th level, a piece of flesh cut off from the body can also regenerate quickly. Ronan immediately practiced according to the secret book. The blue lotus and white lotus is to nourish the body by refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There are a total of 20 practice postures in the secret book. Each level corresponds to a practice posture. Ronan immediately practiced the posture of the first level, sitting on the ground, bending the right leg, stretching the left leg, and pinching the thumbs of both hands together. He made a seal, breathing in and out according to the method in the secret book. Suddenly, the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth nearby, that is, the energy particles, gathered towards him. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth first entered his meridians, and then was pulled by his spirit, following the meridian route in the blue lotus white lotus art, and walked in circles in his body. Not long after, his body felt slightly warm, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. Moreover, this hot spring was full of vitality. His flesh and skin seemed to have turned into plants and were growing. Ronan summoned Hangmeng, and adjusted his own values. Gangfa, blue lotus white lotus art, 1 layer 5%. The blue lotus white lotus art appeared in the values, and the progress of cultivation was rising rapidly. He felt his ki and blood speeding up slightly, and the muscles of his whole body gradually became tight, and there was always strength in his body. In the next few days, in addition to cultivation, Ronan was also looking for some magic plants that could be taken. He remembered that his eldest brother and younger brother often took a kind of medicinal soup when they were practicing knights. This kind of medicine soup needs to be made from the bones of monsters and dragon bone grass. Ronan thought that, although the progress of Kinglian Bayagon was not slow, just by relying on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth without taking the big medicine. But if he took the flesh and blood of monsters and ate the dragon bone grass, he could speed up the practice. What's more, he also had the growth green liquid and the rapid growth technique, which could promote the growth of dragon bone grass and increase the age of dragon bone grass, thus making the medicinal effect of this herb stronger. Thinking of this, Ronan went out of Triumph City to hunt monsters and collect dragon bone grass. He learned hundreds of magic plants from Awen and knew where the magic plants were produced. Dragon bone grass is also a common magic plant. He knows that this grass grows in the Gult Forest outside Triumph City. Gult Forest of monsters. Ronan, who changed his appearance, pointed his hand, and a green sword light shot out from his fingertips, cutting a monster boar with dark blue fur in half. When he came to the place where the dragon bone grass grew, he saw the monster wild boar eating the dragon bone grass. The monster wild boar smelled the breath of a stranger and rushed towards Ronan. Generally speaking, the energy fluctuations of a third level wizard apprentice are already not small. If this first level medium level monster wild boar felt an energy fluctuation stronger than its own, it would definitely walk away. However, Ronan practiced the ancient wood longevity technique that was close to nature. After achieving the greenwood spirit body, it was a bit back to nature. In the eyes of the monster wild boar, Ronan was just an ordinary person. It had not eaten blood for many days, and it was naturally excited when it saw Ronan. As for Ronan, he just happened to collect monster flesh and blood, so he immediately released a greenwood sword light and killed the wild boar. The wild boar was weak and did not need him to sacrifice the green spirit sword. Ronan dealt with the body of the monster wild boar, collected the edible parts, and left the rest here to use as fertilizer for the dragon bone grass. He picked 70% of the dragon bone grass and left, heading to other parts of the forest to continue collecting monster flesh and dragon bone grass. After collecting a lot of monster flesh and dragon bone grass, Ronan returned to the small bungalow and entered the botanical garden. He took out the elf dagger and pried open the 3 floor tiles of the botanical garden. Then, he condensed 30 wizard hands and inserted the dragon bone grass into the soil one by one. When he picked the dragon bone grass, he did not pull out the roots. Therefore, he needed to use the rapid growth technique to help the dragon bone grass take root. The wizard's hands were very fast, and soon, the light blue dragon bone grass was densely planted in the 3 floor tiles. Ronan's heart moved. The mother tree of the natal immortal tree immediately emitted a light golden light. With the blessing of the light of the holy tree, the power of his witchcraft would be improved. Then, he injected the ancient wood immortality magic power into the witchcraft model of the rapid growth technique, and began to promote the growth of the dragon bone grass. While urging it to grow, he summoned Hangmeng to analyze it. Magic plant. Dragon bone grass year. 0.6 magic plant, dragon bone grass year. 1.1. After all, these are wild dragon bone grasses, without protection, and will be picked by humans, or eaten by monsters. The dragon bone grasses, that his brother and younger brother used to make medicinal soup, are at least 30 years old. Magic plants with years are basically cultivated. Except for the deep part of the monster forest, there may be dragon bone grass with a high age, but wild dragon bone grass in other places is generally of this age. Ronan cast the fast growth technique, and opened his hands. A large piece of green light shone on these dragon bone grasses. He cast the fast growth technique on the natal immortal tree, and a beam of light was cast. All the magic power of the fast growth technique acted on the natal immortal tree. At this time, this large piece of light was cast, and the magic power of the fast growth technique was distributed on each dragon bone grass. After all, the dragon bone grass is not a very high level spiritual plant like the life tree. Under Ronan's fast growth technique, it can be seen that it has grown. At its lower end, tender roots have grown, and continue to spread towards the soil. Its height is also constantly rising. Magic plant, dragon bone grass year. 3.2 magic plant, dragon bone grass year. 4.1. The age of the dragon bone grass is increasing very quickly. After the magic power of performing the fast growth technique is exhausted, Ronan will make the green liquid of life and pour it on it. After being poured with the green liquid of life, the dragon bone grass grows more happily. 3 days passed. Ronan sat cross-legged in the botanical garden and practiced the green lotus white lotus gong. Green lotus white lotus gong. Third level 3%. The speed of practicing a skill at the beginning is always very fast. Basically, it is improving by 1 level every day. He called up Han Meng and adjusted his own values. Lifespan. 261 strength. 24 spirit. 43 mana. 27. After practicing the green lotus and white lotus, his strength increased by 8 points, almost catching up with his mana. And he also saw that his muscle lines were becoming more and more obvious when he was taking a bath these days. He had analyzed the city guards patrolling in the middle city and found that the strength of those guards was generally around 30. He estimated that, after he practiced the green lotus and white lotus for a few more days, he could fight those city guards with his physical strength alone. After practicing for more than 3 hours, Ronan slowly stopped the practice, stood up, and walked to the laboratory. These days, while practicing, he also put the study of energy particle amplification on the agenda. In his mind, there is relevant knowledge about energy particle amplification. It was all recorded in the library using Han Meng. The books in the library recorded a method of energy particle physical amplification. It is to carve energy concentration magic pattern on the magic ore. Then, these magic ore are arranged into a certain witchcraft formation. Under the witchcraft formation, the magic guiding ore engraved with a energy gathering magic pattern will guide the energy particles to flow along a certain route in this witchcraft formation. The person being amplified stands in the center of the witchcraft formation, and the energy particles flow through his body, which can amplify his body. At the same time, this witchcraft formation can also use spells to manipulate the flow rate and flow of energy particles, thereby controlling the strength of the energy particles to temper the body. Ronan took out some magic guiding ores from the storage black ring. He bought these ores in Diagon Alley. They are all cheap goods, not for saving money, but to make them form a weaker witchcraft formation. After all, he had never tried to build an energy particle amplification formation before, and this formation was for his own use. Therefore, he planned to be safe first, just to see if this witchcraft formation can be completed, to feel how the energy particles flow through the body, and how he can control the flow rate of the energy particles in the witchcraft formation through spells. As for the strength of the energy particles, and whether they can temper the body, let's not worry about it for now. After he took out the magic ore, he made a gesture, and recited the treasure refining technique in King Mu sword technique. The Zhengjin key and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered towards the magic ore. He called up Han Meng, and called out the energy gathering magic pattern. With the help of Han Meng, he carved the energy gathering magic pattern on the magic ore. Because it was the first time to carve, he was not proficient, so he carved very slowly. Almost all of his energy was concentrated on the magic ore. The Genjin key condensed into a tiny carving knife and slowly passed over the magic ore. Stone powder fell on the magic ore bit by bit and fell on the table. After half an hour, the energy gathering magic pattern was carved on the magic ore. Afterwards, he performed the treasure refining technique again, condensed the Genjin key, and carved the energy gathering magic pattern on another magic ore. By the evening, all 13 magic ores were engraved with energy gathering magic pattern. Next, he had to set up a magic formation. This magic formation was a polyhedron with 13 vertices. There were 3 rooms in his bungalow. One was used as a bedroom, one was used as a laboratory, and the other was a botanical garden. In the botanical garden, there was already a magic formation that extended the space. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly had an idea and decided to use 13 wizard hands to grab the magic ore and build a magic formation. Chapter 84, a wizard apprentice with a strong body. The undead will cause chaos. In the laboratory, Ronan condensed 13 wizard hands, each holding a piece of grey-brown magic conducting ore. On the ore, there were mysterious and artistic patterns, which were the energy concentrating magic pattern. Under Ronan's control, the 13 wizard hands slowly moved and adjusted. Suddenly, when the 13 wizard hands were arranged in a certain position, Ronan's consciousness immediately sensed it. An invisible field was generated between the 13 wizard hands, and energy particles flowed in it. Because the quality of these 13 magic conducting ores was not high, and Ronan also deliberately carved the energy concentrating magic pattern incompletely. Therefore, the flow of energy particles between the fields was not fast. Ronan walked into the formation. He immediately felt that the energy particles gathered towards his body, penetrated into his body from every pore, and flowed through his muscles and blood. A slight tingling and heating sensation arose between his muscles. Looking inside himself, he found that the blood flowed faster, and the muscle fibers vibrated and stretched slightly under the action of the energy particles. Then, he slowly chanted the spell, and the energy particles in the formation immediately accelerated their flow. Ronan always paid attention to whether the energy particles would cause him harm. After observing for about an hour, he found that the energy particles did not harm him. He walked out of the energy particle amplification formation, felt the blood flow in his body speed up, and his muscles felt tight. Feeling the power emerging slightly in his muscles, Ronan felt that energy particle amplification was indeed feasible. Next, he practiced the green lotus white lotus art and the healing technique. If the energy particle amplification caused damage, he could immediately treat it. Ronan thought about it and put away the 13 magic guide ores first. He walked to the botanical garden and continued to practice the green lotus white lotus art. In the secular world of the world of cultivation, in a small town in the Wei Kingdom, Ronan set up a big pot in the spacious courtyard to boil the bones and flesh of the monsters in the dragon bone grass that had grown to 50 years old. The firewood under the big pot was burning fiercely. The strange smell of monster bones and dragon bone grass floated up with the smoke. Ronan saw that the medicine soup was cooked, and after letting it dry for a while, when it was cooler, he picked up the big pot and drank it. A kind of wild taste of monsters and the bitter taste of herbs flowed between his lips and teeth. After a while, Ronan drank the whole pot of medicine soup, and felt his body getting hot. This was the effect of the medicine on his body. So, Ronan's heart moved, and he traveled back to the botanical garden, sat cross-legged under his natal longevity tree, and began to practice the green lotus white lotus gong. Green lotus white lotus gong, 10th level 2%. After more than half a month, his green lotus white lotus gong reached the 10th level. Not only did his blood flow like a river, but his muscles also became very tight. The most important thing is that there is a kind of vigorous power in his muscles. Moreover, perhaps because the King Mu's spirit body helps the practice of the green lotus white lotus gong, this power is immediately enhanced as soon as it is born. He felt that if he cut a knife wound on his arm, it would heal quickly. Lifespan: 271 strength, 36 spirit, 46 mana, 32. His strength has greatly improved, even more than his mana. His ancient wood longevity technique has already improved his physical body. Now that he has practiced another physical cultivation method, his strength value is naturally greater than his mana value. He heard people talking in the bar and knew that the patrol guards of Cakesan City in the city were at least Golden Knights. His 36 points of strength may have surpassed the Golden Knights. Besides, I'm only practicing the Green Lotus and White Lotus technique now, and I haven't really amplified the energy particles yet. After practicing the Green Lotus and White Lotus technique for many days, Ronan felt that his recovery ability was not weak, so he planned to amplify the energy particles. He took out 13 pieces of magic guide ore and perfected the energy concentration magic pattern on them. Then, 13 wizard hands condensed, grabbed the magic guide ore, and arranged an energy amplification formation around himself. Sitting cross-legged in the formation, he felt the energy particles rushing towards his body. Ronan slowly recited the obscure syllables one by one, forming a spell. The flow of energy particles immediately accelerated. The blood flow suddenly accelerated, and the hot feeling in the muscles became more and more intense. He looked inward and saw that his muscles were shaking and stretching violently. At the same time, Ronan called out Hang Meng to analyze himself. A stream of information emerged in his mind. Strength. 36. Strength. 37. Strength. 38. Ronan continued to speed up the flow of energy particles, and his strength value was slowly increasing. At this time, his forehead was covered with sweat, and the clothes on his back were soaked. Then, he took off his clothes, revealing a body of very well-defined muscles. The Kinglian Bayao Gong, a body cultivation method, has already made a great transformation to his body. Now, it is time for energy particles to transform his body. The sound of the spell echoed in the botanical garden, and energy particles kept shuttling back and forth in the formation, and the flow rate kept accelerating. Ronan's body was washed over and over by energy particles, becoming stronger and stronger. He had been looking inwards at himself, and the next moment, he saw that under the impact of the energy particles, a muscle fiber in one place was slightly broken. However, immediately afterwards, a vitality emerged from his body and quickly repaired the broken part. Ronan knew that this was the vitality generated by the Green Lotus and White Lotus art. The Green Lotus and White Lotus art is indeed useful. Ronan saw this scene and thought, I can increase the intensity of the energy particle amplification. If the body is damaged, it can be repaired with the Green Lotus and White Lotus art and healing. Thinking of this, he chanted the spell more quickly. The energy particles flowed faster. His body became hotter and hotter, his skin turned slightly red, and wisps of smoke came out of his skin. Ronan had been increasing the intensity of the energy particle amplification. If there was a wound in the body, it would be repaired immediately with the Green Lotus and White Lotus art. After more than an hour, suddenly, bang! The 13 pieces of magic guiding ores that formed the energy particle amplification formation exploded together. Dust flew everywhere, filling the botanical garden. But the quality of this magic ore is poor, and it can no longer withstand the flow of energy particles of this intensity. I need to buy new magic ore. Ronan thought to himself, while brushing the dust in front of his face. He summoned Hang Meng, and adjusted his own values. Strength. 41. When he went to the upper city, he had analyzed the strength of the guards in the upper city from a distance. The strength value is generally between 40 and 50. He heard from Paul that the guards in the upper city have all been transformed by blood. In other words, his current strength is almost catching up with the blood transformed knights. After thinking for a while, Ronan put away his thoughts. He slapped 3 cleaning talismans on himself to clean off the stone dust on his body. Then, he went to the lower city. He wanted to buy some better quality magic, or in Diagon Alley. On the way to the lower city, he passed by a restaurant, and walked in, because he hadn't had lunch today. He ordered half a grilled porcupine, a cheese lo mein, and a pot of fruit wine. He saw the chef make this kind of grilled porcupine in the Redwood territory. After killing the porcupine, the cook will hang it up, and stuff it with spices such as garlic, cloves and rosemary to remove the fishy smell. After removing the fishy smell, it will be skewered on an iron fork and roasted. When it is done, it is served while hot, with some fruit syrup, rose vinegar, pepper, cinnamon, cloves and gravy and other seasonings, and then you can start eating. Ronan ordered the dishes, and after waiting for a while, half a porcupine came up. The porcupine was full of fragrance, and it was not much worse than the one he had eaten in mahogany. Then, he picked up the knife and fork, and began to cut off the red meat of the porcupine, put it in his mouth, and felt the deliciousness exploding between his taste buds. While he ate, he listened to the people in the restaurant talking about things. A wandering knight with a scar on his face, drinking directly from a wine flask, said to a person beside him, "Do you know that the undead society has started to riot?" The person beside him was slightly surprised. "I heard before that the undead society got a lot of benefits in the wizard ruins a while ago, but I haven't heard of the riot. When did this happen? I guess I was the first one to know about it." The wandering knight took a sip of wine. "You know, I have to transport that batch of goods from the southern province to here. Along the way, I saw many traces of the undead society's riots. Along the way, I kept praying to the gods, hoping not to meet the people of the undead society. In the end, I arrived safely in Triumph City." Ronan listened to it and remembered what Paul said, that the leader of the undead society, the Holy Lord, collected many dead souls of wizards and wizard apprentices in the wizard ruins. These dead souls are very likely to be transformed into a powerful army of undead. If the undead society is causing chaos everywhere, then people in places where there are no wizards, or even no wizard apprentices, will be in danger. Thinking of this, Ronan walked over and performed the noble etiquette with the wandering knight. "Sir, I want to ask you something. May I ask you?" Seeing that Ronan was dressed as a noble and performed the noble etiquette, the wandering knight did not dare to neglect him and also saluted. "Sir, if you have anything to ask, just ask." Ronan said, "I wonder if you have passed through the southeast province. How is the undead society's chaos there?" The wandering knight replied, "Of course, I have passed through there. On the way, I heard that the family behind the governor of the province is the Fleming family, one of the 7 major wizard families in the kingdom. They sent wizard apprentices and wizards in the family to various territories in the province without wizards to help them resist the undead society. Along the way, the southeast province is one of the provinces that I have seen that is least affected by the undead society's chaos." As he said this, he took another sip of wine and burped. "Thank you," Ronan said, and asked the waiter to bring a pot of fine wine to the wandering knight. He returned to his seat, eating roasted pig while thinking. He had heard of the Fleming wizard family. He knew that the people in this family were proficient in weather magic. It was said that they could summon hurricanes and thunderstorms with a wave of their hands. Chapter 85. The vengeful spirit transformed from the wizard's dead soul. Ronan's father was just a middle-class noble. In terms of strength, he barely reached the level of a gold knight. Over the years, as he grew older, the strength of a gold knight has also declined. In the memory of the original body, his father also had the idea of undergoing blood transformation. However, his father was married at the time, and in addition to the risk of death, there was also the risk of blood mutation and the birth of monster. For the sake of his descendants, his father gave up the idea of going further on the road of knighthood. As one of the 7 great wizard families in the kingdom, the Fleming family, which was high above, helped a middle-class family, which was really a bit beyond his expectations. The wandering knight only heard about it from hearsay, and I don't know whether it is true or not. Thinking of this, Ronan stopped eating the barbecued porcupine. First, he went to Diagon Alley and bought dozens of magic guiding oars. Then, he engraved the pattern of the evil repelling talisman mixed with other patterns on the magic guiding oar. The talisman is the text that draws the power of heaven and earth, and is not limited to being drawn on talisman paper. Soon, he carved the pattern of the evil repelling talisman. He wanted to send these magic guiding oars back with the family letter. Although the evil repelling talisman was not knowledge in this world, its ability to attract the power of heaven and earth was very similar to the magic pattern in the wizard world. If someone in the southeast province asked about the evil repelling pattern, he could say that it was the magic pattern he had researched to restrain the undead creatures. In the wizard world, facing the bloody and terrifying necromancy, there were indeed wizards who had researched the witchcraft and magic patterns to restrain the necromancy. However, the books in the library, that were only for 2nd level wizard apprentices to read, had not yet been mentioned. In the family letter, he asked about the family situation and the use of these magic guiding oars. After arriving at the pigeon house, he divided the dozens of oars into 10 or so portions, rented 10 or so of the best pigeons, and had them deliver them to the Baron's mansion in Redwood. Then, he walked back to the bungalow. When he bought the magic guiding, or in Diagon Alley, he bought 13 more. These 13 pieces of magic guiding, or are used to set up a more powerful energy particle amplification formation. The next morning, Ronan was in the laboratory, refining the green liquid of growth. Although, during this period of time, he spent a lot of time on strengthening his physique. But every day he still promoted the growth of his lifelong tree, and practiced the ancient wood longevity technique. With the help of the wizard's hand, he quickly refined several portions of the green liquid of growth. Suddenly, he felt something. He immediately called out Hang Meng, and adjusted the value. Green liquid of growth, Grandmaster 1%. The green liquid of growth finally reached the Grandmaster. After refining the green liquid of growth, he poured it on each spiritual plant. While pouring, he analyzed the spiritual plants. Spiritual plant, life tree year. 109 spiritual plant, life tree year. 43 magical plant, dragon bone grass year. 81 magical plant, dragon bone grass year. 75. Spiritual plant, green spirit green cloud bamboo year. 1236 spiritual plant, green spirit green cloud bamboo year. 1302. After the growth green liquid reaches the Grandmaster level, it will be perfect after a period of hard work. At that time, it will be necessary to change to a better growth promoting potion. I wonder if Paul has contacted the students of the potion professor? Go ask him, hoping to get a new formula before my growth green liquid reaches perfection. Ronan thought, and then went out, and walked towards the lower city. After arriving at Paul's bungalow, he scanned with his spiritual sense, and saw that Paul was at home, so he knocked on the door. Who? Paul shouted from inside. Me. After hearing Ronan's voice, Paul immediately came to open the door. Hey, Ronan. Paul greeted Ronan and let him in. After Ronan entered, he didn't say anything else to Paul, and asked directly, have you found out about the disciples of the space wizard and the professor of pharmacy? Can I get knowledge from them? Paul sighed. Their disciples are all 3rd level wizard apprentices. It's really hard for me, a 2nd level wizard apprentice, to enter that circle. Besides, I'm not from a wizard family. Ronan was about to say something, but suddenly he was distracted. His current spiritual sense can cover more than 500 meters. He sensed that there was an intangible existence that entered his perception range and was coming towards this side. In a mansion in the lower city, a man with long black curly hair and a pale face stood in the hall, holding a magic wand high. The magic wand was as white as an animal leg bone, emitting a trembling breath of death. He chanted a spell and controlled 5 ghosts to go to a nearby house. This man is a member of the Necromancer Society, a 3rd level wizard apprentice. The 5 vengeful spirits he controls are transformed from the souls of wizards who died in the Necromancer ruins. The Necromancer Society wants to do bigger things and needs to collect more wizard apprentices and the souls of wizards. There are many wizard apprentices living in the lower city of the Necromancer Society. In the lower city, there is not only no wizard council base, but also not many patrolling guards. It is a good place for them to collect souls. This Necromancer Society member was sent here by the meeting with a 2nd level inferior amplification wand, 5 vengeful spirits and 5 bottles of intermediate transformation potions. 3 of the 5 vengeful spirits were transformed from 3rd level wizard apprentices, and 2 were transformed from 1st level formal wizards. They are extremely fierce. He controls the vengeful spirits and passes through the houses one by one. The mortals in the houses have no idea that vengeful spirits have entered. The mortals are doing things, and the invisible vengeful spirits pass through the bodies of mortals. The souls of mortals were eaten by the vengeful spirits, making them stronger. The mortals who lost their souls fell to the ground, their bodies cold. A civilian was walking home. When he entered the house, he saw his family lying on the ground. He walked over to take a closer look and shook his family's shoulders. He felt that the muscles where he touched had lost their elasticity and there was no body temperature. Suddenly, the civilian was shocked and walked to the street. he saw a patrol guard in heavy armor, who was about to shout. The cultists of the Dead Soul Society controlled the vengeful spirit and hit the civilian's back, and passed through his body. The civilian, whose soul was eaten, immediately collapsed in the sight of the patrol guard. The patrol guard was a knight after all. Although he was at the bronze level, his knowledge was not comparable to that of ordinary civilians. After seeing this situation, he guessed that it was caused by extraordinary power. He immediately took out a signal cannon from his waist and was about to fire a signal. However, the speed of the vengeful spirit flying was extremely fast. As soon as the guard took out the cannon, the ghost crashed into his armor and then passed through his back. The guard fell to the ground like a mountain. The heavy armor hit the stone slab with a clang. The cannon fell from his hand and rolled to the side. Chapter 86. Leading people through time. As civilians and patrol guards died one after another, pedestrians on the street, even if they could not see the vengeful spirits, knew that something evil had happened, and they all shouted and ran away. Seeing this scene through the window of the mansion, the necromancer Orisha cursed. Orisha originally wanted to control the vengeful spirits, enter the house, and quietly devour the souls of the people, to gradually strengthen the vengeful spirits. However, this caused panic. As long as the other patrol guards knew about it, and sent a signal to the middle city and the upper city, he would not be able to continue to control the vengeful spirits to devour souls. Once the official wizards came, Orisha gritted his teeth, and did not stop. He continued to control the vengeful spirits, wanting to devour as many souls as possible before the official wizards of the Wizard Council came. His eyes kept looking up at the sky, and his ears listened attentively. As long as someone fired a cannon, or blew a horn in the lower city, he would immediately put away the vengeful spirits. He had a mid-level transformation potion. After drinking it, he could change into another person and hide in the lower city. The top leaders of the Necromancer Society had told him that the intermediate transformation potion was much more powerful than the primary transformation potion. Only a third level official wizard would be able to find out that he had drunk the intermediate transformation potion. Moreover, this great wizard must be very proficient in witchcraft such as insight. Thinking of this, Orisha felt that it was unlikely that he would be discovered, so he walked out of the mansion. These 5 ghosts have a certain control range. They can only be controlled within 200 meters. If the ghosts go far away, he will have to move to catch up. Orisha walked on the street, holding up the white magic wand. The breath of death surrounded him. He chanted a spell while walking slowly. He manipulated the 5 ghosts and moved forward. On a street, there was a wizard apprentice. He heard the movement, looked back, and immediately saw the ghosts floating quickly. When wizard apprentices are practicing wizardry, they generally learn a first level witchcraft called Wizard's Eye. This magic allows wizards to see some non-physical existences such as the dead. This wizard apprentice is a second level wizard apprentice, practicing water elemental magic. He saw that the vengeful spirit was coming very fast, and he had no time to dodge, so he used the water bullet technique to attack the vengeful spirit. However, this vengeful spirit was transformed from the soul of a first level formal wizard, emitting great energy. This wizard apprentice is not of high level, and the magic power contained in the water bullets he released is too small. After the 5 water bullets hit the vengeful spirit, the magic power of the water bullets was maintained, and they exploded immediately. The water without magic passed through the vengeful spirit and sprinkled on the ground. The vengeful spirit directly passed through the body of the wizard apprentice. The body of the wizard apprentice softened and fell to the ground. Suddenly, bang, a firework shot up into the sky and exploded in the sky. Orisha saw the firework, cursed again, and then chanted a spell to take back the 5 vengeful spirits. He ran into an alley, drank the intermediate transformation potion, and became another person. After changing his clothes, he walked to the other side leisurely. In Paul's bungalow, Ronan heard the sound of fireworks, and his spiritual sense sensed that the non-entity that entered his perception range flew back immediately. He felt that this non-entity was similar to the spirit of monster, and it also had a gloomy feeling. Could it be a vengeful spirit? Ronan thought to himself. Paul, who heard the sound of fireworks, didn't know what happened, so he opened the door and walked out. Ronan followed him out. What happened? This is a warning firework. Paul looked at the fireworks sign in the sky and said, However, no one responded behind him. Turning around, Ronan's figure was gone. Ronan thought that this matter was related to the undead society, so he wanted to follow them. He wanted to learn about the family's situation from the undead society's believers. He didn't know whether the southeast province was really protected by the Fleming family as the mercenary said, and was almost unaffected by the undead society's chaos. So, he first cast several amulets on himself, then cast the magnetic torrent. Borrowing the repulsive force of the magnetic field, his feet slightly lifted off the ground, and his body glided. At the same time, he drank a bottle of primary transformation potion, and changed his appearance. He took out a cloak from the storage black ring, and covered himself completely. He glided very quickly in the direction where the non-entity left. His spiritual consciousness was released, and everything within 500 meters was reflected in his mind. He avoided all places where people were. Soon, he sensed the cold corpses on several streets. Then, his spiritual consciousness sensed that 5 non-entity beings were collected into a gem on the top of the magic wand by a person holding a magic wand. Then, the person drank a bottle of potion, changed his appearance, and walked in one direction leisurely. Ronan followed quietly, and when he saw the back of the person, he immediately summoned Han Meng, and began to analyze. After discovering that this person was only a 3rd level wizard apprentice, Ronan immediately used his spiritual sense to confirm that there was no one around, and then he had an idea. The magnetic current on his body suddenly increased, and his body turned into a black shadow, with the black cloak on his body rustling, and flew towards the necromancer. When he was only about 50 meters away from the necromancer, Ronan injected his magic power into the witchcraft model of wizard's hand. The magic power and spirit mixed together to form a wizard's hand in the air. Then, under Ronan's control, the wizard's hand clenched into a fist and blasted the back of the necromancer's head. Bang! The back of the necromancer's head was bombarded, and his eyes immediately turned black, and the whole person staggered forward. At this time, Ronan had already flown up and touched the necromancer with his hand. With an idea in his mind, he and the necromancer disappeared in the street. Ronan had only tried to bring a live chicken through time before, but he had never tried to bring a person through time. This time, the attempt was successful. The unconscious necromancer and his figure appeared in a mansion in the state of Wendy. Ronan left the cultist behind, and with a thought in his mind, he traveled back. After returning, he released his spiritual sense, sensing the surroundings, while using the cleaning talisman to clean up the traces. He mainly cleaned up the traces of the necromancer. He used the magnetic torrent to glide in the air, so he would not leave any traces. In addition, he used the amulet and had a shield on his body, so he would not leave any smell. After cleaning up the traces, Ronan used the magnetic torrent again and glided to an empty alley in the distance. He changed his clothes, walked out of the alley, restored his appearance, and merged into the crowd in the lower city. Taking advantage of the fact that the warning fireworks had not been set off for a short time, the Wizard Council had not yet investigated what happened, and the lower city had not yet been closed. He followed the crowd and walked into the middle city. Chapter 87. The Rebels from the 7 Great Wizarding Families. After Ronan returned to the bungalow, he immediately had an idea and returned to the Wendy mansion. At this time, Orisha still did not wake up. Ronan deliberately used heavy hands. Orisha's head was severely injured. If no one treated him, he would not wake up at all. Ronan put Orisha in a sack, released the witchcraft magnetic torrent, rose to a high altitude, and glided away. He took the sack to an uninhabited forest. After releasing Orisha, he first searched Orisha's body and found a storage ring on him. When his spirit probed into the storage ring, he found books, magic wands and some bottles and jars inside. The book was the bone meditation method of the Necromancer Society. Immediately, Ronan was sure that this wizard apprentice was a member of the Necromancer Society. Ronan searched his body again and saw that there was nothing else, so he injected the ancient wood longevity magic power into the witchcraft model of entanglement. He stretched out his right hand to Orisha. The palm of his right hand showed a dark green light. Vines burst out from the dark green light and soon wrapped around Orisha's body. Not long after, Orisha's body was firmly bound by the vines. Then, Ronan cast the healing spell to treat Orisha's head injury. Soon, Orisha's head injury improved a lot, and he woke up slowly. As soon as Orisha woke up, he found himself in an unfamiliar environment. The person in front of him was actually a stranger. With a shock in his heart, he immediately poured his magic power into the witchcraft model of the Spear of Bones. Witchcraft is to use one's own magic power to attract energy particles to cast spells. If there are no energy particles nearby, magic power can only be used to cast spells. This is the secular world of the world of immortal cultivation, and the spiritual energy is thin. As soon as Orisha cast the Spear of Bones, the energy particles in the air gathered and condensed into a white spike like a toothpick. As soon as this white spike condensed, Ronan pinched it and inserted it into the muscle on Orisha's arm. Immediately, Orisha screamed, "Don't try to resist. Just answer whatever I ask," Ronan said coldly. "Who are you?" Orisha asked. "Pa." Ronan slapped Orisha in the face, causing blood to come out of the corner of his mouth, making him dizzy. "Tell me who you are. Don't try to lie to me." Orisha said, "I'm Ordain, a 3rd level wizard apprentice at the Jester Wizard Academy." "Lie." Ronan took out the elven dagger and cut Orisha's arm. A piece of flesh on Orisha's arm was cut off, revealing the white bones. Orisha screamed again. "Answer my question," Ronan said in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on Orisha. "I really didn't lie," Orisha shouted. "Ah." Ronan swung the knife again and cut off another piece of Orisha's flesh. "I'm telling the truth." Under the severe pain, Orisha no longer had the rationality to think about what to answer, and immediately shouted, "I'm the wizard apprentice of the Necromancer Society, Orisha Dave. Will your Necromancer Society cause chaos in the Southeast Province?" After Ronan asked this, Orisha hesitated. But the next moment, Ronan swung his knife again and cut off a piece of flesh from his thigh. "Answer me," Ronan said coldly, his eyes still staring at Orisha tightly, with a very oppressive feeling. Orisha wailed, and his body tied by the vines kept struggling. "Please don't hurt me anymore, I say," Orisha said in a crying voice. "The Necromancer Society is not causing chaos in the Southeast Province." Ronan listened and thought of what the mercenary said, that the Necromancer Society had caused chaos in the Southeast Province, but because of the resistance of the Fleming family, it had little impact on the Southeast Province. However, this person who was a member of the Necromancer Society had another explanation. "Why?" Ronan asked. "Because the Fleming family is an ally of the Necromancer Society," Orisha answered. Ronan was slightly surprised when he heard this. It turned out that the Undead Society had little impact on the Southeast Province because the Undead Society did not take action on the territory of its allies. The hearsay from the mercenaries should have been deliberately spread by the Fleming family. The Fleming family wants to overthrow the Augustus royal family? If the Fleming family goes to war with the Augustus royal family, won't they forcibly recruit my family? After hearing this news, Ronan's thoughts raced, thinking of a solution. Write a letter to his father and ask him to take his family and run away as soon as possible? No, his father is at least a middle-class noble in the Southeast Province. Maybe the Fleming family will keep a close eye on his whereabouts. After thinking about it, Ronan felt that, as long as the Fleming family started a war, his father would have to join the war. If he didn't join the war, the Lawrence family might be destroyed by the Fleming family first. If he joined the war, he would be lucky. If the Fleming family won, his father should be safe and might even enjoy the fruits of victory. If the Fleming family lost the war and the Augustus royal family was merciful, his father would be able to continue to be a lord. If he was unlucky and the Fleming family lost the war, his father might be liquidated as a traitor. After thinking for a while, Ronan felt that reporting the matter to the royal family might be the best way. In this way, perhaps the royal family could take action in advance and destroy the Fleming family so that the war would not start. Thinking of this, Ronan knocked Orisha unconscious again. Then, he used healing magic to stop the bleeding on Orisha's wound, to prevent him from dying from excessive blood loss. Because he had not yet carefully looked at the things in Orisha's storage ring, if he encountered something he did not understand, he would have to ask this person. Therefore, he did not kill him, but planned to imprison him. Ronan put Orisha in a sack and took him back to the mansion. After changing into the clothes of the wizard world, he moved his heart and traveled back to the wizard world. Ronan's figure appeared in the bungalow. Immediately, he went out and walked to an empty alley. He drank a transformation potion and changed his appearance. Then, he went to the market and bought parchment, a quill pen, ink and an envelope. With the hand of a wizard, he wrote the news that the Fleming family wanted to overthrow the royal family. He wanted to send the letter to the Wizard Council. In order not to arouse the association of the Wizard Council, he did not write the news that the Fleming family colluded with the Undead Society. After writing the letter, he walked to a base of the Wizard Council. "Sir, your letter." Ronan handed the letter to a third-level wizard apprentice in person. While the third-level wizard apprentice was confused, Ronan walked out of the Wizard Council base and used his spiritual sense to perceive everything in the base. He sensed that the third-level wizard apprentice was stunned for a moment, then opened the envelope, and his body trembled when he read the letter. Then, he called other wizard apprentices to read the letter together. After the wizard apprentices delivered the letter and discussed it for a while, one of them took the letter and used the speed increasing magic to rush to the upper city. Chapter 88, Bone Dragon Wand and Soul Prisoner Crystal. Ronan returned to the mansion of the Welly Kingdom. At this time, the necromancer, Orisha, was in a coma. Ronan probed his spirit into Orisha's storage ring, which he kept close to his body. He saw the books, wands, and bottles in the ring. There were 2 books. In addition to Bone Meditation Method, there was also a book called Wandering Notes in the Dead Plane. Ronan took it out and flipped through it. It was written about what a necromancer saw and heard after entering the Dead Plane. The book said that the Dead Plane was extremely vast and mostly wasteland. There was no sun in the sky, and it was grey all the time. When some powerful undead creatures appeared, the huge dead air covered the sky and the sun, and the sky would fall into darkness. The author said that in the Dead Plane undead creatures were scattered. The most powerful among them, and the one who commanded most of the undead creatures, was the monarch-level undead creature, also called the monarch of the Dead Plane by the wizard. Because the Dead Plane is very vast and the dead creatures are scattered, there are also several monarchs. The necromancers have not yet fully explored the Dead Plane, and it is still unknown how powerful the monarch-level creatures in it can be. As far as the author knows, the monarchs in the Dead Plane are at least the strength of a third-level formal wizard. Some monarchs in the Dead Plane have even reached the strength of a 5th-level formal wizard. The book says that the creatures in the Dead Plane have no interest in the magic mines, magic plants, creatures and other resources cherished by wizards in other planes. They are only interested in the dead souls. Only the dead souls are the food for them to evolve and become more powerful. The creatures in the Dead Plane are accustomed to living in the Dead Plane with a strong aura of death. They don't want to set foot in other worlds at all. Of course, if there are souls of excellent quality in other worlds, they may step out of the plane cracks and hunt for souls. Perhaps, the Dead Souls Society use the souls of many wizards and the legendary wizard of the kingdom, Darlifer Augustus, to lure out a monarch of the Dead Plane. Ronan thought as he read the book. Soon, he finished reading the book. After putting the book back into the storage ring, he used his mind to explore other things. He took out the magic wand with a thought. The magic wand was a bone wand, which was a bit creepy with its white color. It was unknown which magical beast's bones it was made of. The bone wand stood on the ground, reaching the height of the chest. There was a dark purple gem on the top of the bone wand. The 5 vengeful spirits were in this gem. Ronan probed the gem with his spiritual sense. Immediately, a gloomy and bloody feeling rushed into his mind. Then, his spiritual sense could not go deeper. In order to find out the use of the magic wand, Ronan performed a healing spell and healed 70% of Orisha's head injury. Soon, Orisha woke up. When Orisha saw Ronan, his body trembled, and there was a look of fear in his eyes. "Sir, I have answered your question. When can you let me go?" Orisha said in a trembling voice. "Tell me the information of these things, and I will let you go," Ronan said. After that, Ronan asked Orisha about the origin of the bone staff. This bone staff is said to be taken from a bone dragon in the dead spirit plane. It is a 2nd-level superior magic weapon. Orisha said it can increase the power of dead spirit magic by 10%. Then what is this stone? Ronan shook the gem on the bone staff. When Orisha heard Ronan say that this piece was a stone, a trace of imperceptible contempt flashed in his eyes. "This is the prison soul magic crystal. With the spell, it can seal the powerful resentful spirits." "What is the spell?" Ronan said. How to control the resentful spirits? Hearing Ronan ask this question, Orisha was ecstatic. When he saw Ronan took out the bone staff, he had the urge to recite the spell and release the resentful spirits to kill the enemy. However, Ronan was too close to him. He was afraid that Ronan would find him before he finished reciting the spell and interrupt him. Sir, the spell is complicated, but it will be very simple. After practicing it several times, Orisha suppressed his ecstasy and tried to speak as calmly as possible. This spell is a string of obscure words with ups and downs of syllables slowly came out of his mouth. Suddenly, the soul prisoner magic crystal on the top of the bone staff flashed a little light. Along with the 5 grey rays, 5 ghosts flew out of the magic crystal. Under Orisha's control, they rushed towards Ronan. However, these 5 ghosts stopped immediately in front of Ronan. They seemed to be afraid of something and dared not move forward. Orisha kept urging his spirit, but the 5 ghosts still could not move forward. He didn't understand why, and slightly widened his eyes. Ronan's mouth corners slightly raised. In his clothes, there were 40 master level evil repelling talismans painted with monster skins. These 5 vengeful spirits, unlike ordinary dead souls, were transformed from the souls of wizard apprentices and wizards, and had a certain degree of wisdom. Feeling this great threat to them, they did not dare to move forward. It was already difficult for Orisha to control 5 vengeful spirits. At this time, the 5 vengeful spirits did not dare to move forward. No matter how much mental energy he consumed, he could not let the 5 vengeful spirits move forward even a little. Bang! Ronan turned the magic wand upside down and hit Orisha's face hard. With a scream, several teeth in his mouth flew out. This was Ronan's punishment for Orisha's murderous intention. Go on. How to control the vengeful spirit? Ronan said lightly. Orisha was frantically thinking about why the vengeful spirit was afraid of Ronan, but afraid of being beaten again. He hurriedly told him the witchcraft to control the vengeful spirit. The witchcraft to control the vengeful spirit is called primary spirit control technique, which is practiced in the wizard apprentice stage. Ronan summoned Hang Meng and wrote down what Orisha said. Then, he called up the information flow of Hang Meng, and according to the information, he slowly but accurately recited the spell. Suddenly, the 5 vengeful spirits were collected into the soul prisoning magic crystal. Orisha's eyelids could not help but twitch. Although his wizard talent tested in the academy was B level, he had a high affinity for the dead plane. His talent for necromancy was ranked among the top in the Dead Spirit Society. This enabled him to become a 3rd level wizard apprentice at the age of 17 with the help of the bone meditation method. Now at the age of 22, he will reach the middle stage of the 3rd level wizard apprentice. He estimated that he could become a formal wizard in his 30s. This was considered an excellent talent in the kingdom. However, it took him most of the day to recite the spell accurately, but the man in front of him succeeded in one try. When Orisha was surprised, Ronan dragged Orisha out of the house and threw him a branch. Remember the witchcraft model formula of the elementary soul control technique for me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Experimental Subject. Ronan cast the entanglement spell, slightly loosening the restraints on Orisha, allowing his right hand to move. Orisha was afraid of Ronan, so he could only follow Ronan, pick up branches, and write down the witchcraft model formula of elementary spirit controlling technique on the mud. He has not yet built the witchcraft model of elementary spirit controlling technique, but the formula has been completely memorized. With the sound of rustling, a series of dense symbols were written by Orisha. Ronan looked at the series of symbols, summoned Hang Meng, and replaced them with equations. After Hang Meng got the equation, he immediately constructed a 3-dimensional coordinate. With the input of the equation, or 3-dimensional witchcraft model gradually took shape. After Orisha wrote down all the symbols, Ronan also knew this witchcraft model. After learning the witchcraft of elementary spirit controlling technique, Ronan focused on other things in the storage ring. In addition to books and bone dragon wands, the only things left in the storage ring were some medicine bottles. Ronan took out all the medicine bottles. These medicine bottles were made of brass, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. The opening was plugged with a wooden stopper. Ronan had used his spiritual sense to sense that after Orisha drank a bottle of potion, his appearance changed. At this time, Orisha's appearance had not changed back. He estimated that Orisha drank the transformation potion. He opened a medicine bottle and found a liquid emitting a faint white light. He had learned about this potion in the private class of pharmacy. It was an initial recovery potion. Drinking this potion can restore mental power. Wizards need to use mental power to mobilize magic power and attract energy particles. This initial recovery potion is a very common potion. Ronan put the wooden stopper back and opened the other bottles and jars. He found 3 bottles, all of which were this initial recovery potion. After opening another bottle, it was a light blue liquid. Ronan also recognized this potion. It was an initial magic recovery potion. It was mainly used to restore magic power for wizard apprentices. It was also a potion that was common on the street. Then, Ronan continued to open the medicine bottles. Finally, he found a purple-black liquid in one of the medicine bottles. He immediately knew that this was not the primary transformation potion. Because the primary transformation potion was dark purple, not this color. Could it be the intermediate transformation potion? Thinking of this, Ronan asked Orisha and got confirmation from him. Seeing that Ronan had finally asked about all the things in the storage ring, Orisha trembled and said, "Sir, can you let me go now?" Ronan looked at Orisha and then retracted his gaze. He originally planned to kill this necromancer after asking questions. However, he had the idea of cultivating an experimental subject. He was quite interested in witchcraft that enhances physical fitness. Moreover, strengthening physical fitness can also increase the probability of successful foundation building. The books in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy roughly introduce many methods of enhancing physical fitness. In addition to the most common blood witchcraft in the Kingdom of Valant, there is also the second most common energy particle amplification. After that, there are also unpopular witchcrafts that enhance physical fitness, such as magnetic field amplification, disease body refining, etc. For these witchcrafts, if you want to be safe, it is better to have an experimental subject. However, in the Kingdom of Valant, anyone who forces others to be experimental subjects without their consent is a black wizard. The person being experimented with is an exception if he voluntarily serves as an experimental subject and signs a contract with the wizard. However, many people are still unwilling to be experimental subjects. Therefore, many wizard apprentices and wizards in the kingdom, including Ronan, serve as experimental subjects themselves. He has read in the books in the library that these physical transformation experiments are not meaningful when done on animals. After all, there is a big difference between the body structure of animals and humans. Sometimes, if the physical transformation is successful on animals, it will be completely different when done on humans. Some black wizards will also imprison wizard apprentices or wizards as experimental subjects. However, it is more difficult to imprison wizard apprentices or wizards as experimental subjects. Because wizards know witchcraft, if they want to be imprisoned, they must use a magic forbidden witchcraft formation. The magic forbidden witchcraft formation is one of the most precious witchcraft formations, and it is not easy to obtain. However, the secular world is the best magic forbidden area. Ronan thought to himself, with a slight smile on his face. He thought of the embarrassing look of Orisha who wanted to condense a bone spear, but ended up condensing a bone stick. With Orisha's level, in this environment with extremely low energy particle concentration, he could not perform a destructive witchcraft at all. Moreover, in this environment, even if Orisha wanted to practice meditation, he could not continue to practice. If it were him, he would not regress if he did not practice for a long time. But if Orisha did not practice for a long time, his strength would regress. After a while, I'm afraid that even the bone stick could not be condensed. After thinking for a while, Ronan performed the entanglement technique. Under Orisha's stunned eyes, he was once again tightly bound by the vines. "You said you would let me go, you, While Orisha was still swearing, Ronan used his magic power and grabbed his hand. The vines grew wildly, stuffing Orisha's mouth. Then, he went to a big city in Whaley State and bought a pair of shackles made of fine steel. After returning to the town mansion, he used the earth-moving talisman to open up a cellar more than 6 meters underground. After using the witchcraft earth-melting technique to fix the shackles to the wall, he locked Orisha's limbs. Then, he cast the entanglement technique, and the vines flew out from the dark green light in his palm, forming a hood on Orisha's head, and the vines were stuffed into Orisha's mouth again. This move was to prevent Orisha's shouts from attracting mortals in the town. Orisha struggled violently, and the shackles kept making noises. A humming sound came out from his nasal cavity, muffled through the vine hood. Ronan ignored it, left the cellar, and covered the stone slab to block the entrance. After doing everything, he had an idea, and returned to the bungalow in the City of Triumph. Then, he took out a bottle of intermediate transformation potion from the storage ring. He wondered if he could use his knowledge of pharmacy and magic plant science, with the help of Hang Meng, to deduce the formula from the intermediate transformation potion. Thinking of this, he took a crucible from the laboratory table, and used a cleaning talisman on it. The dust on the crucible disappeared immediately. Then, Ronan opened the cork of the intermediate transformation potion, and poured a little into it. Looking at the purple-black liquid in the crucible, he gave an order in his mind. Hang Meng, start analyzing. Suddenly, in his field of vision, a fine blue-light pattern flashed in the liquid. Then, a series of information with various ingredients emerged in his mind. Chapter 90 Analysis of the Vengeful Spirit and the Invisible Flying Sword. Ronan analyzed the messy information about the ingredients in his mind, thinking about what kind of magic plants should be used, and what methods should be used to produce these ingredients. After a while, more than 200 possible methods emerged in his mind. More than 200, not too many, just try one by one. The key is to be able to collect all the magic plants. These 200 methods require about 50 kinds of magic plants. Thinking of this, Ronan went out, and went to the lower city. He changed his appearance and found Tom, the fat pharmacist in the lower city. He asked Tom, and he found that there were only 27 of them in the pharmacy. He had to find a way to buy the others. Ronan bought the 27 kinds of magic plants first, and tried to make a mid-level transformation potion. He tried all night, but failed. He knew that, if he wanted to make a mid-level transformation potion, he would need another magic plant. Let's wait for Tom to buy the stock first. Ronan thought, looked at the sunlight shining through the window, went out, went to a restaurant, and ordered butter pie and meat for breakfast. After he was full, he returned to the bungalow, and focused his attention on the vengeful spirits. He wanted to study the non-physical existence of the soul. The kingdom of Valant had no tolerance for necromancers, and would kill them on sight. In the kingdom of Valant, especially in the capital of the kingdom, Triumph City, studying witchcraft related to the dead was really dangerous. So Ronan had an idea, and returned to the mansion in the small town of Welly in the secular world. Standing on the floor at the entrance of the cellar, he thought of the necromancer Orisha who was trapped in the cellar. He thought that it was less than a day now, so he should not need to send food to his experimental subject. After 2 more days, he would send some food to his experimental subject to maintain his life. Then, he put away his thoughts, and took out the bone dragon wand. The white wand was held in his hand, and the deep purple gem on the top emitted a faint light in the dark room. Ronan recited the spell of elementary soul controlling technique. A grey-white light rolled up on the deep purple gemstone, and it was a vengeful spirit transformed from a 3rd-level wizard apprentice, which was released. After smelling the breath of a living person, the vengeful spirit rushed towards Ronan with a fierce intention. Ronan used his spirit to control the vengeful spirit immediately. Then, he called up Hang Meng to analyze the vengeful spirit. At the same time, he released his spiritual consciousness to sense the vengeful spirit. After the information returned by Hang Meng, he knew that the vengeful spirit was actually a massive energy. Ronan's spiritual consciousness felt the power that maintained the energy gathering, which was gloomy and bloody. I wonder what an ordinary soul looks like, Ronan thought, and then went out, went to a forest, found a wild boar, used the soul pulling technique, and pulled out the wild boar's spirit. After using Hang Meng to analyze it, he found that the wild boar's spirit was also a massive energy, but it was pulled together by the magic power of the soul pulling technique. The power of the vengeful spirit should be the magic of necromancy. He suddenly had an idea. Could he turn the kindling sword into this energy state? The speed of the resentful spirits was very fast because of this light energy state. If the kindling sword flew in this energy state, its speed would definitely increase. Thinking of this, Ronan performed the King Mu sword technique and used his magic power. Suddenly, a green light flashed in front of him, and the kindling sword appeared in front of him. He used the King Mu sword technique to inject his magic power into the kindling sword. Then he used his spirit to turn the kindling sword into an energy state like the resentful spirit. Ronan closed his eyes and used his spiritual sense to sense the kindling sword, and his mental power was constantly consumed. The kindling sword in front of him kept fading and gathering, and its state was extremely unstable. Suddenly, in the eyes of others, the kindling sword disappeared in front of him. He moved his mind, and the kindling sword in the energy state passed through the wall and went outside the house. The kindling sword flew to the street. There were mortals walking on the street, but they could not see the kindling sword flying in front of them. It's done, Ronan thought. Then, he changed into the clothes of the world of immortal cultivation and walked out of the mansion. He controlled the kindling sword, flew back, floated beside him, and walked on the street. No pedestrians on the street noticed its strangeness. Ronan left this mundane town and came to a forest. He thought. The kindling sword, which turned into an energy state, suddenly flashed in the air. A tree 500 meters away suddenly broke, and the cut surface was smooth. After becoming an energy state, the speed of the kindling sword increased several times. The kindling sword that has become an energy state is invisible to mortals and wizards with insufficient spiritual power. From now on, it is better to call this sword using skill the invisible flying sword. Ronan thought to himself and waved his hand. The kindling sword in the energy state suddenly flew into his sleeves and was stored in his dungeon. Triumph City, Glory Castle, Augustus V's training room. This training room is dark and quiet. Augustus V sat cross-legged in the center, drank 3 bottles of potion, and then began to practice meditation. Not long after practicing, he heard someone outside say, "Your Majesty, I have something to report." After hearing this, Augustus V cursed in his heart. He had the wizard training resources of the Kingdom of Valant, and the first wizard of the kingdom, Dalifer Augustus, was his great uncle. Most of the people of Dalifer Augustus' generation and his previous generation have died. Now, in the Augustus family, the person closest to Dalifer Augustus is him. Although his great uncle may not necessarily teach him all the knowledge he has, but the knowledge his great uncle taught him is enough for him to practice to the 4th level formal wizard. However, his practice progress has been slow over the past few decades. He felt that it was because he spent too much time and energy dealing with royal affairs. Just like before, when he was practicing meditation, he was getting better and better, but he was interrupted by his subordinates' reports. He also thought about not letting his subordinates report when he was in seclusion. But he was always afraid that he would miss important information. This idea has never been realized. "What's the matter?" Augustus V said in the practice room. He used a sound transmission magic to transmit the sound out of the thick wall of the practice room. Then, the voice of his subordinates came from outside. "Your Majesty, a stronghold of the Wizard Council received a report that the Fleming family intended to rebel. Is there any evidence?" Augustus V asked. "No, just a letter," the subordinate outside answered. "Who is the reporter?" Augustus V asked again. The recipient of the Wizard Council did not know the content of this letter, so he did not write down the information of the sender. The subordinate replied. Augustus V thought for a while, then said, "You go and get ready, I'm going to visit my great uncle." Chapter 91 Dawn Continent and Wizard Islands. Not long after, Augustus V, wearing a casual dress made of high quality silk and a cloak, stood on a grey-brown platform. On the platform, there was a circular witchcraft formation with complicated patterns. This was the teleportation formation carved by Dalifer Augustus. Augustus V could go directly to Dalifer's wizard tower through this teleportation formation. If it was a normal visit, Augustus V would definitely pay great attention to the royal pomp, wearing gorgeous aristocratic clothes and a crown. Sitting in a chariot pulled by 4 white unicorns, he went to Dalifer's wizard tower. However, now Augustus V wanted to discuss secrets with Dalifer. In addition, now was the time when the wizard family was about to make trouble, and going there in such a high profile manner would definitely alarm the family that was about to make trouble. Standing next to Augustus V were two other people. One was the royal wizard Bruna, a third level official wizard, a true knowledge wizard, proficient in binding magic. The other was the royal guard captain Orlana. Although his wizard level was a true knowledge wizard, he had never joined the wizard council and always called himself a knight in front of others. Bruna chanted the spell, and a white light rose from the teleportation array under the feet of the three people. But the three people did not teleport over, because after using the spell, to activate this teleportation array, Dolipher still needed to cast a spell to allow the people in this teleportation array to teleport over. After a while, it should be Dolipher who agreed to the teleportation. The white light of the teleportation array suddenly became stronger and rolled up the three people. The next moment, the white light disappeared and the three people disappeared. In Dolipher's wizard tower, the figures of the three people appeared on a teleportation array. This teleportation array is on the 99th floor of the wizard tower. Through the window of the wizard tower, you can overlook the entire Triumph City. From the upper city with luxurious buildings, to the middle city with neat and clean streets, to the lower city with dense and slightly messy buildings, to the villages, markets and endless sea outside the Triumph City, everything is in sight. On the 99th floor, except for the teleportation array they were teleported from, there was almost nothing. There was only a spiral staircase leading up, but it was pitch black up there, and there was no idea what was there. But Augustus V, Orlana and Bruna all knew that going up the stairs would lead to Dolipher's training room. However, Orlana and Bruna had always seen Augustus V go up there, but they had never gone up there. In fact, as Augustus V's confidants, they rarely saw Dolipher, the legendary wizard of the kingdom. The few times they saw him, they were almost suffocated by the energy fluctuations on Dolipher's body. Even if they were asked to meet Dolipher, they would not want to. Augustus V nodded to Orlana and Bruna, then walked up the spiral staircase and disappeared into the darkness. The next moment, Augustus V appeared in a spacious room. The room was as bright as day, and no one knew where the light came from. The walls were all bookshelves, with elegantly decorated books arranged on them. An old man wearing a light brown robe, with slightly curly white hair and a long beard hanging down on his chest, sat in the center of the room, flipping through a thick ancient book with his mental power. Granduncle. Augustus V saluted. Sit down. The old man, the legendary wizard of the kingdom, Dolipher Augustus, said. Augustus V came in front of Dolipher and sat on the ground. What happened outside again? Dolipher Augustus said lightly. Augustus V said, during the exploration of the remains of the necromancers, a large number of wizards who died were from the wizard families that I secretly supported. It seems that among the other 6 wizard families, there are families that are colluding with the undead society with the intention of rebellion. However, during this period of time, I have not yet determined which family it is. Today, I received news that the Fleming family intends to make trouble. The patriarch of the Fleming family, Langdon Fleming, has been a great wizard for more than 50 years. His strength is estimated to have become much stronger. If he unites with other families or wizard organizations, he does have the confidence to make trouble. The Evans family and the Stevens family also have great wizards in charge. If these 3 wizard families unite, together with the undead society, it is very likely to threaten our royal family. Grandon, why don't we take the initiative to deal a blow to these 3 families? We need them. After listening, Dolipher said lightly, if it is confirmed that there is only one family, I can still take action and destroy it, but destroying 3 wizard families with great wizards at the same time will greatly weaken the strength of our kingdom of Valant. Do you know why we let other wizard families exist, even though we know that they may threaten the Augustus family? Augustus V shook his head. Dolipher said, this is because there is a high possibility that there will be wizards in the Wizard Islands who want to occupy our continent, just like our ancestor Augustus I. And we need the other 6 wizard families to maintain the power of the Kingdom of Valant. Although our wizard families may fight among themselves in the Kingdom of Valant, if there are foreign wizards invading the continent, we will most likely attack them externally. If we kill 3 wizard families with true wizards, if 2 legendary wizards come to the Wizard Islands and want to occupy this continent, we will have no way to resist. But if these three wizard families really unite, our Augustus will be in great danger. Augustus V said. Darlifer Augustus paused and sighed. Moreover, with my current strength, I can no longer destroy any of the three families with the force of thunder before the other families react. As he spoke, he pulled up the sleeve of his right hand, revealing a hand with wrinkled and black skin, surrounded by a faint black aura. Augustus V was shocked when he saw it. Darlifer Augustus said, in the ruins of the Necromancer, the Holy Lord of the Necromancer Society opened a passage to the necromancy plane, which attracted a necromancy monarch with strength comparable to that of a legendary wizard. Behind him, there were necromancy armies coming one after another. In order to destroy the passage as quickly as possible, and prevent other monarchs of the necromancy plane from arriving, I had to cast a powerful witchcraft. This powerful witchcraft left me with a curse. At the same time, the battle with the necromancy monarch also caused me to suffer serious injuries. The combination of the curse and the injury has made me what I'm now. Chapter 92 Meeting at Fengley Fort. The potential of the Lawrence family. Augustus V felt a little disappointed when he saw that his great uncle actually weakened his strength at this critical moment. Darlifer seemed to know what Augustus V was thinking. You have been a king for many years, and you should know that many things do not necessarily have to be solved by force. The families that want to make trouble now are wrong. They have colluded with the Undead Society, and the Holy Lord of the Undead Society is very likely to be a great wizard who came to the Wizard Islands. The wizard families that have taken root in this continent for many years will eventually be disgusted with outsiders. What you have to do is to first identify which of the 6 major wizard families want to make trouble, and which families hate outsiders coming here, and are willing to maintain the status quo. Next, you have to unite the families that are willing to maintain the status quo as much as possible to attack the families that want to make trouble. At the same time, you have to find some wizard families with the potential to produce great wizards, and then train them. After the wizard families that want to make trouble are destroyed, other families will have to take their place. Of course, if the rebellious wizard family is destroyed, and the kingdom lacks power, you can also invite wizard families to the Wizard Islands. But this is a last resort. As I said just now, people who have taken root in the Dawn continent don't like outsiders. Doing so will cause dissatisfaction among some wizard families. Moreover, we are not familiar with the knowledge and ideas of the families from the Wizard Islands. Sometimes, you can't guess whether they come to this continent to really take root here, or to obtain living experimental subjects more conveniently, or to use the people of this continent as resources, to exchange with creatures from other dimensions. Augustus V couldn't help but smile bitterly after hearing this. Distinguishing allies from enemies, uniting and dividing. It's not easy to do it specifically. Darlifer laughed a few times. His voice was thick, and the slightly curled white beard on his chin trembled with laughter. Yes, in my opinion, politics and interpersonal relationships are more difficult than studying wizard knowledge. But this is exactly what your king wants to do. I'm just a thug for the Augustus royal family. Augustus V was a little frightened when he heard Darlifer's words, and waved his hands repeatedly. No, 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 uncle, you are a legendary wizard, an existence that is high above mortals, and the knowledge in your heart is simply beyond the imagination of mortals. Since my grandfather's generation, the several crises of the kingdom could not have been resolved without you. You say you are a thug, I really can't bear it. Southeast Province, Fengley Castle. Fengley Castle is the castle where the Fleming family lives. The castle is located on a mountain in the southeast province, towering high, like a giant beast standing tall, and overlooking the earth. The castle has all kinds of facilities, and the streets are clean, which is in sharp contrast to the dirtiness of some middle and lower noble cities in the southeast province. There are several wizard towers and a main castle in the castle. In the main castle, the patriarch of the Fleming family, Yusuf Fleming, was discussing matters with his family members. Yusuf Fleming was tall, looked to be in his 40s, with sharp eyes and a short beard on his chin. He was a 3rd level formal wizard, true knowledge wizard. In the castle's meeting hall, he sat at the head of a classical long table, with his family members on both sides. Up to now, the Fleming family has become quite large. In addition to the main branch, there are 5 side branches. At this time, he was taking stock of the strength of other families in the southeast province with his family members. He had to integrate other nobles in the southeast province into an army, so he needed to know the strength of each noble. He held a long parchment scroll, which contained information about each family in the southeast province. The Beruch family, the patriarch is a first-level wizard apprentice, but his second and third sons are second-level wizard apprentices. The Pan family, there is a third-level wizard apprentice. Yusuf looked down the rows, from the nobles in the front row to the nobles in the back row. The Lawrence family, the patriarch Leighton Lawrence, a gold knight. The eldest son Leon Lawrence, a late silver knight. I have heard of this person. The second son Ronan Lawrence is a wizard apprentice at the Kingdom Wizard Academy. The third son Bran Lawrence, a 14-year-old silver knight. Yusuf muttered as he looked. After reading this, a member of the tribe sitting at the bottom said, "Uncle Yusuf, there is something that needs to be corrected." It was rumored that Ronan, the second son of Leighton, had excellent wizard aptitude and entered the Kingdom Wizard Academy to study. But I asked someone in Triumph City to investigate and found that this person's wizard aptitude is not good. He was eliminated in the aptitude test of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. After this person was eliminated, he stayed in Triumph City. This person should have lied to the family, saying that he had entered the Kingdom Wizard Academy and then relied on the support of his family to eat, drink, gamble, and whore in the capital of the kingdom. Yusuf nodded. What a pity. If it were true, it would be great. His family is under my control. If he really has good wizard aptitude, I can use it. However, this family still has some good seedlings. Leon Lawrence previously led an army composed of militias to defeat the larger one with a smaller one and quell the rebellion. His talent for war is as valuable as his wizard aptitude. And Leighton's third son, the 14-year-old silver knight, is a good seedling for transformation into a knight. Once he reaches the pinnacle of the golden knight, we will take him in to serve the family and find a blood wizard to arrange a blood transformation for him. You can keep an eye on this family. If this family obeys my orders in the future, I can promote this family from the middle nobility of the province to the upper nobility. That would be a class leap for this family. After patiently waiting for Yusuf to finish speaking, another member of the tribe who was sitting below said, "Your Excellency the Earl, I have something to report." Because this member of the tribe was far away from Yusuf and was not as close to him as the previous member of the tribe, his tone was much more respectful. "I followed your instructions to intercept and check the letters to and from the province. One day, a wizard apprentice's falcon caught several carrier pigeons. These carrier pigeons have been transformed by witchcraft and fly very fast. They flew from a long distance. I opened the letters of the carrier pigeons and found that they were family letters and things sent by the second son of the Redwood Baron Leighton Lawrence. In the family letter, he asked whether the family was safe during the chaos of the Dead Soul Society and divided several letters and placed dozens of magic stones that he said could restrain the dead witchcraft. Chapter 93 A Small Botanical Garden. When Yusuf heard that there was a stone that could restrain necromancy, his eyes became sharper and he asked, "Have you checked whether it is true?" Although he had joined forces with the Necromancer Society, he only wanted to use the power of the Necromancer Society to push himself to the throne of king. But he knew very well what kind of wizard the Holy Lord of the Necromancer Society was. This wizard from the Wizard Islands had extreme ideas and wanted to sacrifice the lives of the entire continent to exchange the knowledge and resources of necromancy with the powerful creatures of the Necromancer plane. He would only cooperate with this group of black wizards temporarily. When he really became king, he would definitely gather all the power of the country to kill all the wizards of the Necromancer Society. Therefore, during this period of time, he had been secretly sending people to collect witchcraft and magic tools that could restrain necromancy, waiting to make trouble in the future. The tribesman said that magic stone really has the power to restrain undead creatures. We cast necromancy and summoned a low-level skeleton from the undead plane and found that the skeleton was quite afraid of the magic stone. We found a formal wizard who is proficient in making witchcraft scrolls and copied the magic patterns on the magic stone onto the witchcraft scroll. But the witchcraft scroll is of no use to the skeleton. It seems that Leighton's second son had an adventure in Triumph City. After hearing this, Yusuf said, "I want to get the method of drawing this magic pattern." There are two things you need to do. First, send someone to Triumph City to approach Leighton's second son and see whether Ronan Lawrence got the magic stone from someone else or carved it himself and see if he can get it. The second is to send someone to Redwood Territory and tell Leighton Lawrence about this matter directly and let him write to his son to ask about the way to get the magic stone or the method of carving the magic pattern. Yes, Your Excellency. After hearing this, the tribesmen immediately responded, then left their seats and arranged for someone to do it. Then, Yusuf continued to move the long sheepskin scroll upwards with both hands, looking at the family information. Triumph City, Ronan's bungalow. In the laboratory, Ronan was refining the green liquid of growth. 20 or so wizards were busy. On the laboratory table, the pestle floated in the air, pounding it into the grinding mortar. Glass test tubes and other medicine refining equipment moved in the air, carrying out the dilution, extraction and other steps in an orderly manner. Less than an hour later, nearly 10 portions of the green liquid of growth were refined by Ronan. Suddenly, he felt something in his heart, so he called out Hang Meng and adjusted the value. Green liquid of growth. Perfect. The proficiency of this growth potion has finally reached the top. Ronan thought, the matter of finding a better formula should be put on the agenda as soon as possible. In the druid school, there must be wizards studying the growth potion. But Awen was only good at magic plants and witchcraft, and was not familiar with potions. He could not ask Awen for a better formula. We still have to focus on the students of the Kingdom Wizard Academy who are formal wizards. He thought as he manipulated the wizard's hand, picked up the green liquid of growth, and walked towards the botanical garden. After walking to the botanical garden, the space in front of him suddenly expanded. Originally, it looked like a room of about 10 square meters from the outside, but after entering, it immediately became a space of about 100 square meters. In front of him was a 7-meter high tree with a treetop like a canopy. This was his mother tree of the natal immortal tree, and it grew taller and taller with the increase of years. The mother tree was planted directly in the land of this bungalow, and the roots spread deep underground. Because of the growth of the natal immortal tree, Ronan studied the space magic pattern for several days. He also bought better magic stones and engraved the space magic pattern on them. Then, he rearranged a witchcraft formation to cover the entire room and the underground part. He remodeled the bungalow a lot. Magic stones were integrated into the walls, the floor tiles were demolished by him, and there was a cellar nearly 10 meters underground. If the landlord came to check the bungalow temporarily, it would be difficult to remodel it back in a short time. For this reason, he went to find a thief and spent money to buy the bungalow. Although the bungalow is simple and narrow, it is in the city of Cakesawan City after all, and the price is really expensive. In the world of immortal cultivation, Ronan spent several days in the 4 mansions of the east, west, south, and north, looking for several business houses belonging to different immortal cultivation families, and sold a lot of talismans to save enough spirit stones to exchange for gold coins to buy this bungalow. Next to the mother tree of the natal immortal tree is the natal immortal tree. At this time, it is already as tall as a person, but because it is still young, it is not very noticeable. In the botanical garden, in addition to the 2 natal immortal trees, there are other magic plants, all bought by Ronan to attract attention. These magic plants, like the natal immortal trees, also absorb energy particles to grow themselves. Most of them are expensive and look strange. There is a bright colored piranha plant that drools. A magic tree that is 1 meter tall and emits a faint green glow. Its leaves can be used to make potions that help wizards meditate. A pot of mushrooms that emit purple glow can be used to make potions that make people happy. The strange magic plants almost fill the entire botanical garden. Ronan poured the green liquid of growth on the roots of the mother tree of the natal immortal tree. While pouring, he summoned Hang Meng to analyze the mother tree of the natal immortal tree. Spiritual plant, natal immortal tree year 131. As soon as the green liquid of growth seeped into the soil, it was absorbed by the roots of the mother tree of the natal immortal tree. Ronan felt connected to the natal immortal tree, and a feeling of vitality immediately rose in his heart. After watering a portion of the green liquid of growth, he went to water the natal immortal tree. Spiritual plant, natal immortal tree year 51. The two natal immortal trees continuously absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Part of it is used to grow itself, and part of it is fed back to him, forming manna in his dinshan. After watering the two natal immortal trees, Ronan went down to the cellar to water the Kingling Kian bamboo. Spiritual plant, Kingling Kian bamboo year. 1561. Spiritual plant, Kingling Kian bamboo year. 1493. The quality of Kingling Kian bamboo is not exactly the same. Even if each Kingling Kian bamboo is watered with the growth green liquid once a day, the growth years vary every day. Over time, the years vary by decades. After the watering is completed, Ronan casts the witchcraft magnetic torrent. An anti-geomagnetic force is generated on his body, rising towards the entrance of the cellar. After putting the crucible in place, he came under the mother tree of the natal immortal tree, and began to cast the fast growth technique. Fast growth technique, Grandmaster 3%. After a long period of expediting growth, the fast growth technique has made considerable progress. Under the technique of rapid growth, the roots of the natal immortal tree were gradually extending. Its age was also gradually increasing. After the mana was completely exhausted, Ronan sat cross-legged under the natal immortal tree and practiced the ancient wood immortality technique. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth entered his body, and the mist-like immortality mana in his danshan began to rotate again. A faint golden light was released from the natal immortal tree, shining on Ronan. This made Ronan's practice speed increase again. Chapter 94. Entanglement and Windblade. When Ronan was practicing, he called out Hang Meng in his heart and called up the values. Lifespan. 312 strength. 43 spirit. 51 mana. 38 cultivation realm. 9th level of key refining wizard level. 3rd level wizard apprentice skills. Ancient wood longevity skill. 12% for the 15th level. Greenwood sword skill. 23% for the 6th level. God evolving skill. 85%. Proficient. Green lotus white lotus skill. 22% for the 10th level. After a long period of practice, the ancient wood longevity skill reached the 15th level, not far from the 20th level. The improvement of the ancient wood longevity skill made him absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth much faster. 3 days later, Tris Fleming rode a fast horse transformed by witchcraft, cast an acceleration witchcraft, and came to Triumph City. He came from one of the 5 major branches of the Fleming family. After receiving the order from the family, he came here to find a man named Ronan Lawrence, and obtained the magic pattern that restrained the necromancy on him. The reason why he was sent here was because he had stayed in Triumph City for a period of time before. 10 years ago, when he was still 17 years old, he also participated in the wizard qualification test of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. After being eliminated, he cheated the family and used the money funded by the family to have fun in Triumph City for a period of time, spending a period of unforgettable days. Therefore, he is very familiar with Triumph City. He is even more familiar with the entertainment places where the children of nobles go. This time, the Fleming family sent him here, also with the idea that the same kind understands the same kind better. Now, 10 years later, he is already a 3rd level wizard apprentice. According to the information obtained by the Fleming family, Ronan's wizard qualifications are not good. It is estimated that after a year, there will be no progress in the wizard's path. Sending a 3rd level wizard apprentice is already a waste of manpower. Tris rode into Triumph City, put down the horse in the stable of the outer city, and then went into the middle city, and found the best hotel to stay. The family gave him a lot of funds for this family mission, so he could let it go. After sleeping for several hours in the hotel, Tris got up in the afternoon. He did not go to inquire about Ronan's news, but went to the tavern and the brothel, had fun, and then returned to the hotel. It was not until the sun was high the next day that he got up, washed up, and went out. According to the information the family had previously inquired, he found the small attic. But after arriving and knocking on the door, he found that the person living in the small attic was no longer Ronan. He asked the tenant Ronan's name, and the tenant replied that he didn't know. Tris frowned and left the attic, thinking about how to find Ronan again. After walking for a morning, having lunch, and playing in the brothel in Triumph City, he had an idea in his mind. In the afternoon, he went to several brokers in Triumph City, spent money, and inquired about Ronan's news. After inquiring, he learned that Ronan Lawrence had actually purchased a bungalow in the city center of Triumph City. Real estate in Triumph City is expensive, especially in the city center. Although the Redwood Baron Leighton Lawrence was wealthy, his eldest and third son's night training was very expensive, so he probably wouldn't have extra money to buy a property in Triumph City. This guy really had an adventure. Triss thought to himself and went to Ronan's bungalow. His plan was to follow Ronan's movements first, see where this person usually goes to see if he can find some clues. If not, he will approach Ronan for a talk. On this day, Ronan was sitting cross-legged under the natal immortal tree that was emitting a faint golden light, practicing the ancient wood immortal skill. The divine consciousness was released from between his eyebrows, and under the blessing of the light of the holy tree, everything within 600 meters was collected in his mind. Suddenly, he sensed that there was a person more than 300 meters away. He walked behind a big tree, then stopped, poked his head out a little, and looked towards his bungalow. And he didn't leave for a long time. He sensed that the energy fluctuations released by this person should be a third level wizard apprentice. What does this person want to do? Ronan thought to himself, slowly finished his training, put on his clothes, and went out, wanting to see the person's next move to determine whether he was coming for him. He walked towards a street and immediately sensed that the person came from behind a big tree and followed him from a distance. Sure enough, he came to find me. Ronan used his spiritual sense to sense while walking towards the lower city. After arriving at the lower city, he rented a horse and rode out of the city. The person following him cast witchcraft and followed closely. After leaving the city, Ronan whipped the horses, but with a whip and ran wildly. The energy fluctuations of the person behind him increased again, as if a gust of wind lifted the person slightly and kept the same speed as himself and followed closely. Ronan deliberately bypassed the village outside the city of Cakeson and rode his horse into a dense forest. After he used his spiritual sense to confirm that there was no one else around, he immediately injected the ancient wood longevity magic power into the entanglement witchcraft model. Immediately, the ground beneath Triss's feet bulged as he rode the wind. Then, a series of tough and sturdy vines broke out of the ground, grew wildly, and entangled him. The next moment, they tightly entangled his right foot. Triss was suddenly attacked and was shocked. He raised his hand and released several invisible wind blades towards the vines. However, the vines were tougher than he expected. After several wind blades, only 3 vines were cut off. There were still several vines entangled around his feet. Suddenly, the vines swung violently. Triss flew up involuntarily and crashed into a thick tree trunk. Bang! Triss' back hit the tree trunk, making a dull sound, and his spine was immediately broken. Like most wizard apprentices, he was also prepared to use witchcraft to transform his body after he was promoted to a formal wizard for the sake of safety. Therefore, his body was only stronger than that of an ordinary mortal, so naturally it could not withstand such a collision. Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spit out from his mouth. Then, the vine moved again. Triss's back hurt so much that he almost fainted. At this time, he could not concentrate on releasing witchcraft to resist the vines that were entangled with him. The vine took him and swung him in the air again. Bang! This time, his head hit a tree trunk firmly, and his eyes went black and he fainted. Ronan pulled the reins, and the horse in front raised its hooves, turned its head, and went towards Triss. When he walked in front of Triss, he cast the entanglement spell. Immediately, the thick vines shrank back into the soil. Ronan got off the horse, released his spiritual sense, and after confirming that there was no one around, he touched Triss. With a thought in his mind, he took Triss and traveled to the mansion of Welly State Town in the secular world of immortal cultivation. Then, he released a series of vines towards Triss, who was lying on the ground, wrapping him tightly. Then, he returned to the woods of the wizard world. He used the cleaning charm to clean up the traces of himself and Triss. After all the traces were cleaned up, he thought that no one should know what happened here. However, the next moment, he seemed to think of something and turned to look at the rented horse. The horse was grinning, breathing, and watching everything quietly. Chapter 95 Control the Wind and Thunderstorm. The wizarding world is an extraordinary world with rich energy particles. When Ronan was still in the Redwood territory, he had heard of the strange story of chickens being able to speak human language. He was not sure whether the horse in front of him would be born with wisdom in the future. So he stretched out his hand to the horse. When the horse saw Ronan reaching out his hand, he thought that he was going to touch his head intimately, so he habitually called out and moved his head closer. But just when Ronan touched the horse's head, the surrounding environment suddenly changed. From a wide forest, it turned into an enclosed room. The horse was startled by the sudden change in the environment, and its body trembled, and its 4 hooves were about to trample. Ronan was afraid that the horse's hooves would not only trample to death the stalker lying on the ground, but also collapse the cellar under the room. So he immediately pulled the reins. The horse had no idea that the human in front of it was even stronger than it. Ronan pulled the horse's head and dragged it out uncontrollably. There was a sound of horseshoes scraping the ground in the house. After being dragged to the courtyard by Ronan, the horse was about to go crazy again, but Ronan picked up the whip and whipped it wildly. Soon, the horse immediately gave in and dared not make trouble again. Ronan dragged the horse to the stable, tied the reins, and returned to the wizard world with an idea. After returning to the wizard world, Ronan scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense. After confirming that there was no one, he used the cleaning talisman to clean up the traces. While walking back to Triumph City, he first returned to the middle city, found the person who rented the horse, gave the money, and bought the horse. Then, he returned to the bungalow and entered the botanical garden. After releasing his spiritual sense and confirming that no one was watching his bungalow, he returned to the world of cultivation. He came to Triss and searched for the storage magic device on him, a storage bracelet. Then, he used healing magic to heal the head injury to about 70% and wake him up. After Triss woke up, he saw that the person in front of him was Ronan, whom he had followed, and he trembled with shock. He immediately knew that the vines that suddenly entangled him were the witchcraft cast by this person. The information given by the family is wrong. Or thought popped up in his mind. According to the family's information, Ronan Lawrence is just a wizard with poor qualifications. He only started practicing about a year ago, so after a year, it is estimated that he will not improve much. But in today's battle, his wind blade could not even cut the opponent's vines. It can be seen that this person's witchcraft and magic are stronger than his own. Moreover, the most important thing is that this person actually has the means to discover himself who is following far behind. This person will never be a wizard apprentice with poor qualifications and weak strength, as the family intelligence said. Thinking of this, Triss couldn't help sweating. Mistakes in intelligence can make a person lose his life. Sir Lawrence, I'm Triss from the Fleming family. This is a misunderstanding. Please let me go. Triss was afraid that Ronan would hurt him again or kill him, so he immediately revealed his identity. He thought that as a member of one of the 7 major families in the kingdom, he should be able to create a certain deterrent effect on the children of the middle-class nobles in this province, and would not easily hurt him. Why are you following me? Ronan asked. Triss said, Earl Fleming knew that you had the magic pattern that restrained necromancy, so he sent me here to ask who carved this magic pattern. I should have invited you to the tavern and brothel and talked to you while drinking and having fun. But I never thought that I would do such a stupid thing as following you in a fit of anger. After Ronan asked about this person's purpose, he stopped paying attention to him for the time being, but took out his storage bracelet and probed into it with his mind. Triss saw that Ronan had no intention of letting him go after asking him, and he immediately panicked. Moreover, he took out his storage bracelet in front of him to check, clearly intending to take his things. If Ronan wanted to let him go, he would not take his things. Otherwise, when he returned, he would tell the Fleming family about all this, and Lawrence, a middle-class noble, would be in trouble. So, Ronan wanted to take his things now, clearly not wanting to let him go, and even wanted to kill him. Thinking of this, Triss' eyes widened, and he was shocked and anxious, and his body could not help but tremble. Ronan Lawrence, my family knows that I came to Triumph City. If I can't go back, my family will suspect you, and the Lawrence family will be in trouble. Ronan listened, but was unmoved. He had never exposed half of his strength in front of outsiders. Now outside, others still thought he was a first level wizard apprentice. But this person was a third level wizard apprentice. Even if the Fleming family could not find the whereabouts of this person, they would guess that it was a wizard apprentice or wizard from Triumph City who killed him, and they would not guess that it was their own fault. Moreover, if he put this person back, he would expose his strength. Ronan thought, and his mind had already scanned the storage bracelet. In the bracelet, there was a meditation method of the Fleming family, 4 magic wands, a notebook, some valiant gold coins and some medicine bottles. Ronan took out the notebook and looked through it. The notebook recorded Triss's thoughts on practicing meditation and the 2 witchcrafts he practiced. One was a first level medium witchcraft elementary wind control. The other was a first level superior witchcraft elementary thunderstorm. The deduction formulas of the 2 witchcrafts were written in the notebook. Ronan looked at the notebook and knew that Triss's wind control acceleration and windblade were all performed with elementary wind control. Moreover, looking at the speed at which Triss performed the windblade, he knew that Triss had constructed a witchcraft model. After elementary wind control, there was elementary thunderstorm. Ronan looked at Triss's manuscript and knew that mastering elementary thunderstorm was more difficult than elementary wind control. Moreover, in the manuscript, Triss's deduction was fine at the beginning, but some logical and arithmetic errors appeared in the deduction at the end. It seems that Triss has not yet fully mastered the witchcraft of primary thunderstorm. Ronan flipped through it and quickly memorized the spells of the 2 witchcrafts. Then, with the help of Hang Meng, he converted the formula symbols in the manuscript into the formula symbols he was familiar with. After entering Hang Meng, the witchcraft models of the 2 witchcrafts were generated in the 3-dimensional coordinate system. Ronan first stored the formulas and witchcraft models in Hang Meng. When he has time, he will practice these 2 witchcrafts. Then, Ronan put away the notebook and focused his attention on the 4 magic wands. Among the 4 magic wands, one is thicker and different in style from the other 3. The other 3 are thinner and have exactly the same style. Ronan took out the 4 magic wands. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, he found that the thicker one was obviously made of wood, that is conducive to the conduction of magic power, and it should be an amplification magic wand. The 3 identical ones contained magic patterns, and contained a violent power. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Instant Wands, Witchcraft Scrolls and Talismans. Ronan had also seen the description of the magic wand with magic patterns in the books of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. This kind of magic wand is called Instant Magic Wand. It contains a magic spell, which can be triggered as long as magic power is injected. However, this magic wand is disposable. After the magic spell is cast, the magic wand will be destroyed. What magic spells are sealed in these 3 magic wands? Ronan grabbed the magic wand and asked Triss. Triss was still full of anger, staring at Ronan with a pair of eyes. If you don't let me go back, you and your family will pay a heavy price. Ah. Before Triss finished speaking, Ronan took out the Dark Elf's dagger and swung it violently, and several drops of blood splashed. Triss screamed, and blood immediately dripped on his thigh. It was his thigh, and Ronan cut off a small piece of meat. Even though it was a small piece, Triss, who had been pampered for many years, had never suffered such injuries, and he immediately screamed and cried, "If you don't answer my question, I'll cut another piece." Ronan said calmly, "You Fleming family cooperated with the Undead Society. Have you ever seen a skeleton? Although my knowledge of anatomy is relatively shallow, it is enough to cut you into a skeleton and still keep you alive." Listening to what Ronan said, Triss immediately imagined his miserable appearance, and the pressure was great, so he cried even harder. If I tell you, can you let me go?" "Of course," Ronan said, "as long as you tell me, and you promise me not to tell anyone else about what happened here, I will let you go." "Okay, I'll tell you." Triss's face was covered with sweat from the pain, and a layer of sweat film formed on his face, shining under the dim light. "The 3 magic wands in your hands are the primary thunder magic wands, which are sealed with the power of thunder." Then, The magic pattern inside is the thunder magic pattern. Ronan immediately used his spiritual consciousness to penetrate the magic wand, and with the help of Han Meng, he recorded the magic pattern. He had read the method of making an instant wand in the books in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. It was to learn the knowledge of sealing and magic patterns at the same time and combine the two. There was another prerequisite for making an instant wand, which was to get wood that could seal power. Wood that could seal power was very expensive. Ordinary wood could not withstand the power and would explode during the manufacturing process. Thinking of this, Ronan could not help but think of 3 items that were very similar in use: witchcraft scrolls, instant wands, and talismans. The paper of the witchcraft scroll also needed to be made of precious wood. If the magic pattern was drawn on ordinary paper, it would not work at all. However, there were very few instant witchcraft scrolls. To release a witchcraft scroll, magic power often had to be transmitted through the paper and onto the magic pattern before witchcraft could be triggered. In this way, the release speed would definitely not be as fast as transmitting magic power to the witchcraft model. The advantage of witchcraft scrolls is that they are cheaper than instant wands and consume less magic power than witchcraft models. In addition, the witchcraft scroll has another advantage, which is that it can record extremely powerful witchcraft. Generally speaking, the entire scroll that records extremely powerful witchcraft is very long, and it takes a long time to chant in order to cast the witchcraft. Some wizards often cast a protective spell on themselves and then start chanting to cast the great witchcraft on the witchcraft scroll. Compared with a witchcraft scroll, the instantaneous magic wand cannot seal some extremely powerful witchcraft, but the speed at which the magic wand conducts magic power is fast enough to be instantaneous. However, the amount of wood used to make an instantaneous magic wand is more than that of a witchcraft scroll. Moreover, the knowledge of sealing required to make an instantaneous magic wand is much more advanced than that of making a witchcraft scroll. Therefore, the instantaneous magic wand is usually rarer and more expensive than the witchcraft scroll. Generally speaking, individual wizards will buy instantaneous magic wands for their own use. In some large-scale wizard wars, wizard armies usually use witchcraft scrolls. With the cooperation of their comrades, they have enough time to chant. Moreover, in war, witchcraft is thrown out at a very high frequency, one after another. If all wizards use instant wands, they can't withstand such consumption. Similar to witchcraft scrolls and instant wands, in the world of immortal cultivation, the thing that can match them is a talisman. However, the cost of making talismans is much lower than that of witchcraft scrolls and instant wands. Through the structure and spells of the talisman, even a piece of parchment can carry the power of the talisman. Moreover, its power is not inferior to these 2 witchcraft items. After Ronan's thoughts flew for a while, he put away the wand and then took out the medicine bottle in the storage bracelet. He checked these medicine bottles and found nothing new. It was nothing more than some potions for healing injuries, restoring magic power, restoring mental power, and helping meditation, which were all standard equipment for wizards. Ronan took back the potion and stuffed the storage bracelet into the pocket of his inner shirt. Then, he asked Triss about other things he knew about himself and his family. When he knew that the Fleming family had found a formal wizard to copy his evil repelling talisman, he thought to himself, although both talismans and magic patterns are symbols that pry the power of heaven and earth, the steps and details of drawing these 2 things are quite different. Relatively speaking, the strokes of talismans are simpler than magic patterns. However, there are particular requirements for laying paper, grinding ink, and moving the brush in drawing talismans. The complexity of the procedures and the cumbersome methods are not comparable to magic patterns. Even with Ronan's attainments in drawing talismans, when he first got started with a talisman, he had to follow the rituals of drawing talismans, such as bathing, meditation, and chanting. Only after he was proficient in drawing a talisman can he skip some steps. But before drawing a talisman, he still had to breathe and meditate, and when drawing a talisman, he still had to chant the spell in his heart. Moreover, when drawing a talisman, every stroke, how to turn, and how to control the time ratio are all very particular. Simply copying the talisman will not produce any effect. The talismans in the talisman book are copied talismans. They can only show the appearance of the talismans to the practitioners, but they cannot be used at all. The patterns of magic patterns are much more complicated than talismans. However, as long as we figure out how to draw the patterns of magic patterns, such as the ratio between the patterns, we can completely replicate the magic patterns. The wizards in the wizard world have formed a fixed mindset, believing that the symbols that can pry the power of heaven and earth are all contained in their structure. Therefore, Ronan felt that the formal wizard who tried to replicate his talismans would probably not think of the control of the time of drawing the talismans, as well as the rituals of drawing talismans such as bathing, meditation, and chanting. If there really were high-level formal wizards to study his evil-repelling talismans, he estimated that it would probably take a long time to study all the details. What's more, his evil-repelling talisman is only a first-level talisman in the world of immortal cultivation, not a high-end product. In the wizard world, there are also other witchcraft and magic tools that restrain undead creatures. Moreover, some powerful witchcraft can also destroy undead creatures. The time of high-level formal wizards is precious, and no one will really spend time to study this talisman. Chapter 97 The Power of Wind Element. Thunder. In addition, Ronan asked Triss about other things about the Fleming family, but Triss didn't have a high status in the family and didn't know much. "You will let me go, right?" Triss said when he saw that Ronan had no other questions. Then, he looked at Ronan's expression and saw that he didn't have the slightest intention of letting him go, so he panicked again. "I won't tell anyone about what happened today. Or, you give me an amnesia potion to erase my memory." Ronan's eyes lit up when he heard it. "Can you get an amnesia potion, or the formula of an amnesia potion?" Ronan had heard of the amnesia potion before, which was a very advanced potion. If he got this potion, it might be of great use to him in his future actions. However, when he asked this question, Triss was speechless. Ronan knew that Triss, a wizard apprentice, couldn't get potions or potion formulas. So, he stopped talking and planned to imprison Triss as his second experimental subject. Immediately, Ronan condensed a wizard's hand and hit Triss on the back of his head. Afterwards, Ronan began to plan the place to imprison the experimental subjects. He wanted to build a basement under this mansion. But building a basement is different from digging a cellar. The basement has higher requirements in terms of load bearing. However, he also learned about architecture in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. In addition, he learned the magic of reinforcing ceilings and walls. With the melting earth technique, steel bars and wood can be integrated into the walls so that a decent basement can be built. Ronan thought of this and immediately started to act. 10 days passed before he knew it. Ronan finally opened a basement under the mansion. At present, there are 5 prisons in the basement. If there are more experimental subjects in the future, he can open more prisons. One of the prisons imprisoned his number 1 experimental subject, Orisha, a cultist of the necromancer. The other prison was where his number 2 experimental subject, Triss of the Fleming family, was imprisoned. Because the two of them practiced different meditation methods, they could form a control group. During these 10 days, Ronan also studied the soundproof magic pattern recorded in the library. He carved it on the magic ore and integrated it into the wall of the basement. In this way, Orisha and Triss could not communicate in the basement. Ronan bought shackles, integrated them into the wall, and locked Triss up. Triss saw that he was locked up, struggled for a while, and couldn't break free, so he trembled. He never thought that the family's intelligence would be so outrageous. This Ronan Lawrence is not only not weak, but also a dark wizard. Thinking that this body of his would be subjected to inhumane experiments, he felt desperate in his heart. "Lord Lawrence, please, don't use me for experiments. I can give you anything. I can be your spy," Triss said to Ronan with tears streaming down his face. Ronan ignored him, opened the iron cell door, closed it, and left. Ronan came to a forest outside the town and tried the 2 witchcrafts of initial wind control and initial thunderstorm. The first one he performed was initial wind control. He chanted the spell and uttered it from his mouth with a few obscure syllables. The ancient wood longevity magic power in his dantian was used by him and transformed into the magic power of initial wind control. In the wizard world, wizards use their own magic power to pry energy particles and then transform them into the magic power of witchcraft. Of course, wizards can also rely on their own magic power to transform into the magic power of witchcraft. However, casting witchcraft in this way will consume a lot of magic power. The energy particles in the wizard world are dense, and wizards are also used to attracting energy particles to fight. But in the world of cultivation, the spiritual energy is not as dense as that in the wizard world. Therefore, the monks are used to using their own mana to cast spells. In the secular world, this concentration of spiritual energy cannot be borrowed. So Ronan almost completely used his own mana to cast the initial wind control witchcraft. As soon as the primary wind control was performed, he felt the power of the wind element surrounding him. With just a move of his mind, he could drive it. Immediately, he used his mind to control the power of the wind element. Suddenly, the wind blew from under his feet and lifted him up. Ronan chanted while increasing the output of his magic power. The whole person slowly floated up. It stopped when it was about 2 meters. Ronan controlled the power of the wind element and pushed himself to fly at a low altitude. After flying for a while, he felt that flying with the power of the wind element, although it was easier to control, was not as smooth as flying with the anti-geomagnetic force of magnetic field witchcraft. Ronan chanted non-stop and stretched out his hand, and an invisible sharp wind blade formed in the air. He pressed his hand into the void and the wind blade shot forward. Swish! The tree trunk was cut by the wind blade, wood chips flew, and a large cut immediately appeared. Because essential wind control is still in the introductory stage and its power is not strong, the wind blade's magic power is insufficient and cannot cut down the whole tree. Then, Ronan manipulated his mental power, controlled the power of the wind element, and collided left and right. Suddenly, dust flew in front of him, and with gusts of wind, it sometimes went left, and sometimes went right. Through Triss's notes, Ronan knew that, if he practiced essential wind control to a deep level, he would be able to suddenly raise a wind from the ground and blow up the enemy by surprise. After trying essential wind control, Ronan changed to the spell of essential thunderstorm and recited it. The spell of essential thunderstorm is also longer than essential wind control, and the pronunciation is more difficult and obscure. As each syllable was uttered, the mana in Ronan's dantian was slowly consumed. He stretched his hand forward and released the magic power of essential thunderstorm. Suddenly, a violent force slowly formed in the air. Ronan thought that the initial casting speed of primary thunderstorm was also slower than primary wind control. At the beginning, it could only play a role in team combat. If the combat partner helped to hold the enemy back, he could also use primary thunderstorm to attack. If it was a one-on-one, the enemy would have already released several attacks at the speed of this attack. After 5 seconds, the power that had been brewing in the air finally broke out. Suddenly, there was a thunderbolt. A small and winding yellow lightning suddenly struck down in the air. It struck a tree directly, and a spark lit up the tree immediately. Then, the tree broke into 2 halves, falling to the left and right. After hitting the ground, it raised a cloud of dust. Ronan looked through the dust at the 2 halves of the split tree trunk. There was a spark on both sides of the cross-section, flashing red and burning. Chapter 98 Letter. After trying 2 spells, Ronan returned to the town mansion. The 2 immortal trees in the wizard world can share his spiritual consciousness with him. At every moment, all the movements within a radius of more than 600 meters of the bungalow will be recorded in his mind. After he made sure that there was no one around the bungalow, he moved his mind and disappeared from the mansion in the world of cultivation. The next moment, he appeared in the bungalow in the wizard world. Southeast Province, Redwood Territory. Redwood Territory Baron Leighton Lawrence was entertaining Bob Fleming, a tribesman sent by Yusuf Fleming. The two sat at the dining table and talked. Next to Leighton Lawrence was Ronan's younger brother, Bran Lawrence. Leighton was 43 years old this year, with a big frame and a height of more than 1.9 meters. Just looking at his physique, he exuded a sense of oppression. He had black hair and black pupils, thick eyebrows and big eyes. He looked a little honest when he smiled, but quite majestic when he didn't smile. Although his beard had just been shaved, his face and chin were still covered with dense black roots. Bran was 14 years old this year, but he was already over 1.8 meters tall. His face was still full of childishness. His eyes were very clear, and he just sat quietly by the side, listening to his father talking with the Fleming family. Now that his eldest and second brothers were not at home, he was the only one of the younger generation to attend. Bob was also in his 40s, slightly fat, with a thick brown beard, and was a 3rd level wizard apprentice. Layton poured Bob a glass of deep purple fragrant wine. I don't know why you came to the Redwood territory, but what does the Earl want to do? Bob had kept his hands in the sleeves of his wizard robe and did not touch the sumptuous dishes on the table. At this time, he smelled the mellow aroma of the wine, so he reached out from his wizard robe, picked up the wine glass, gulped twice, and drank the wine in the glass. Layton then picked up the copper wine pot and continued to pour wine into Bob's glass. Bob glanced at Layton, took out several bags and a letter from the storage magic device, and placed them on the table. As you know, during this period, the Undead Society has been causing chaos in various parts of the kingdom. Even in our southeastern province, traces of the Undead Society have been found. For the safety of the province, the Earl sent people to check the letters in and out of the province. Coincidentally, I saw these letters, which were sent to you by your second son. Hearing that they were sent by Ronan, Bran's eyes immediately flashed, and he wanted to reach out and take the letters to check. But seeing that there were outsiders here, he forcibly held back. Bob continued, Sir Layton, I'm sorry, we read the letters from your second son, and found that your second son is in Triumph City, and sent you magic stones that can restrain undead creatures. Layton and Bran couldn't help but look at the bags one by one, with surprise in their eyes. Bob picked up a bag, shook it, and poured out several magic stones the size of pigeon eggs. He picked up one of them between his thumb and index finger, and showed it to Layton. Sir Layton, I want to tell you some wizard knowledge. Look at the fine lines on this stone. We wizards call it magic patterns. Carving magic patterns on the magic stone can generate magic power. And this magic pattern, according to your son's letter, can restrain necromancy and undead creatures. As I said just now, the undead have been rampant in recent days. The Earl wants you to write a letter and ask your son Ronan to write a letter about the method of carving magic patterns or the way to obtain magic stones and send it to you. After listening to this, Layton thought for a while and said, Sir Bob, my son is studying at the Kingdom Wizard Academy. This method of carving magic patterns should have been learned from the Kingdom Wizard Academy. If the Academy disagrees, this method should not be passed on to outsiders. Bob heard this and wanted to say that your son had lied to you and had not studied in the Kingdom Wizard Academy at all. However, if you said it, it would mean that their family was secretly investigating Layton's son. First, he was afraid that Layton would guess that the Fleming family was investigating their son because they were estimating the strength of the various families in the province in order to rebel. Second, he was afraid that Layton would become rebellious and not cooperate with them. Of course, he was not afraid of Layton's rebelliousness. After all, as long as their family sent a formal wizard, they could kill all the people in this family. But he still wanted to see which of the two situations, negotiation and coercion, Layton would cooperate the most. If Layton didn't cooperate well with the soft approach, he would immediately use the hard approach. Bob smiled and said, Sir Layton, our Earl is familiar with many formal wizards in the Kingdom Wizard Academy. He knows that there is no such magic pattern in the Academy. So, we want you to write a letter to ask your son where he got this magic pattern, or how was it carved. Okay, Sir Bob. Layton agreed after hearing this. He asked the servant to bring a quill pen, ink, and parchment, and wrote a letter just before Bob. Bob looked at Layton's wording and couldn't help but frown. The wording in the letter did not have the momentum of the head of the family at all, and it was basically a tone of negotiation. After sending this letter, the noble son would probably not take it seriously. No wonder Layton's son dared to deceive him and took the family funds to eat, drink and have fun in Triumph City. Bob couldn't help but mutter in his heart. He thought for a while and said to Layton, Sir Layton, now the dead are rampant and the Earl really needs this magic pattern to restrain the dead witchcraft. I suggest you explain this clearly in the letter. Okay. Layton responded and then added some statements in the letter according to what Bob said. After writing, he called a servant and told him to send the letter. However, Bob stopped him. Sir Layton, the Fleming family has a carrier pigeon transformed by witchcraft. It flies very fast. We can help you send the letter. Thank you. Layton handed the envelope to Bob. Bob took it and put it in the storage magic device. He exchanged a few words with Layton, drank a few glasses of wine, and left. Layton sent the pigeon for a while and then came back. When Bran saw Layton, he said, "Father, I heard that the kingdom has a ban on the spread of wizard knowledge. If Brother Ronan tells the knowledge of magic patterns, will it be?" Layton smiled and said, "Among the 3 brothers, he is the most stubborn and the one who least listens to me. At the beginning, I advised him not to get close to the wandering wizard who passed through the territory, but I never thought that he not only got close to the wizard, but also bought a meditation method and practiced it secretly, and he almost died as a result. Later, he said he wanted to go to the Kingdom Wizard Academy. I said that he should go to the Wizard Academy in the neighboring province first to test his talent, and then go to Triumph City. As a result, he still followed the caravan to Triumph City. What's more, your brother has been in Triumph City for nearly a year, and he is still alive and well. He can judge everything by himself. Sometimes, it's useless for us to worry about nothing." Chapter 99, 10th level of key refining. Sword and shield for protection. Ronan went back to practicing day after day. Several days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Ronan sat cross-legged under the mother tree of his lifelong tree. The light of the holy tree, which was light golden in color, spread over Ronan's body. Ronan felt that his greenwood spirit body had become much more active. The spiritual energy of the heaven and earth nearby flowed through his pores, through his skin, and into his meridians like water. He used the ancient wood longevity technique to guide the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to travel through his meridians, and then went to the Danshan, transforming into the ancient wood longevity magic power. In the Danshan, a group of green mist-like magic power was rotating. This mist-like magic power was becoming more and more dense, and there was a tendency to transform into a liquid state. Ronan pinched the seal with both hands, placed them on his legs, and his 5 hearts were facing the sky. He closed his eyes, and white air was exhaled from his mouth and nose from time to time. After a while, Ronan felt that there was a force brewing in his Danshan. Soon, the mist-like mana in Danshan suddenly grew. This group of mana became much larger, and the verdant mist became even denser. Breakthrough. Ronan called up Hangmeng, and called up the values. Lifespan. 330 strength. 44 spirit. 53 mana. 42 skills. Ancient wood longevity skill. 16th level 32%. King Mu sword skill. 8th level 97%. Yanshen skill. Proficient 85%. Kinglian white lotus skill. 10th level 22%. Cultivation realm. 10th level of key refining wizard level. 3rd level wizard apprentice. Ronan saw that King Mu sword skill would soon break through to the 9th level, so he decided to practice it. Because at the 9th level, he could perform a new sword move, sword shield for protection. In this way, his defense could be taken to the next level. Immediately, Ronan followed the key circulation route of King Mu sword skill, and circulated key in the meridians over and over again. At the same time, the 2 kingling swords in the Danshan began to hum. After he circulated his key through his meridians, he went to the Danshan, washed through the 2 swords, and then went out of the Danshan. Every time he circulated his key, Ronan felt that his connection with the 2 kingling swords was getting deeper and deeper. King Mu sword art, 8th level 98%. King Mu sword art, 8th level 99%. The progress of practicing King Mu sword art was gradually increasing. Suddenly, Ronan opened his eyes. A trace of sword light flashed in his pupils. King Mu sword art, 9th level 1%. At this time, he felt that his connection with the 2 kingling swords had deepened a lot, and the perception of protective sword and shield appeared in his mind at this time. Try the sword move, Ronan thought, and then put away the holy tree light of his lifelong mother tree. Then, with a thought in his mind, he traveled to the mansion of Welly State in the world of cultivation. Since he had come to the mansion, he went to the town, bought some food, and gave it to the 2 test subjects. Then, he left the town, and seeing that there was no one around, he injected the ancient wood's longevity magic power into the magnetic torrent witchcraft model. Suddenly, a magnetic force rushed through his body. Under his control, a force of anti-geomagnetic field was generated in his body. His whole body shot up into the sky like an arrow. After reaching an altitude of about 30 meters, he stopped and looked around. After seeing a forest he had never been to before, he immediately had an idea and flew towards the forest. His clothes rustled through the air. Not long after, he flew above the forest. Then, with an idea, the magnetic force on his body suddenly attracted the geomagnetic force. The whole person suddenly fell down rapidly. When he was about to reach the ground, he immediately released an anti-geomagnetic field force and stopped just a finger away from the ground. Then, he landed steadily on the ground with a thought in his mind. Ronan made a sword gesture, and 2 green sword beams appeared in front of him. The sword beams faded, revealing 2 kindling swords. The kindling swords were originally green like bamboo. However, Ronan carved magic patterns on them and integrated magic conducting metal. Therefore, when the sword beams faded, the kindling swords looked like 2 ancient, heavy, and faintly shiny bronze swords. Ronan secretly made a sword gesture. Suddenly, the 2 swords began to hum. Sword beams emerged on them, and a strong sword energy burst out. The tree trunk was destroyed by the sword energy, and sword marks appeared one after another. Ronan made another sword gesture, and performed sword shadow splitting. The 2 kindling swords with shining sword beams suddenly split into 3. 6 kindling swords appeared in front of him. Then, Ronan changed his sword gesture again, and performed the newly mastered sword move sword shield. Suddenly, the 6 kindling swords released a light green force, and each sword faintly formed a sword shield. Under Ronan's control, the 6 swords circled vertically around Ronan, forming a green light curtain. Ronan's consciousness sensed that a blocking force was generated as the 6 swords rotated. If there were attacks from spells or witchcraft, they would be blocked by this force. Ronan performed magnetic torrent and floated up. When he was more than 3 meters in the air, he controlled the 6 swords to swim around his body. Suddenly, the 6 swords flew around Ronan like 6 fast swimming fish. Moreover, the 6 swords did not interfere with each other and faintly formed a spherical shell that wrapped the whole body. This is the real sword shield for protection, Ronan thought. At this time, he felt that he still had too few kindling swords. If there were enough swords and they swam together, his defense would be even more impenetrable. Ronan flew towards a tree. At the same time, he used the sword and shield for protection. 6 swords moved in a circle all over his body. As soon as the sword and shield formed by the 6 swords touched the tree in front of him, a burst of sword energy immediately broke out from the sword and shield, and the tree was immediately crushed into wood chips. Ronan continued to fly towards a mountain. After the sword and shield touched the mountain, the sword energy immediately burst out. The mountain wall was driven by the sword energy, and dust splashed from the mountain wall. As Ronan went deeper, the sword and shield for protection opened up a corridor in the mountain. Moreover, the sword energy also blocked all the flying debris and dust. It seems that the sword and shield for protection not only has the effect of protecting the body, but also has the effect of attacking. Ronan thought, and his heart moved, and the magnetic field force on his body suddenly increased. The whole person flew out of the corridor. Then, he waved his hand. The 6 flying swords that were originally moving in circles all over his body immediately flew upwards. They turned into 6 green rays and were collected into his sleeves. After the 6 green rays entered his meridians, they merged into 2 green rays and entered his danshan. After the green rays were suspended vertically in the danshan, the light faded, revealing the original appearance of the kindling sword. The mist-like ancient with immortality magic power submerged the kindling sword and nourished it. Chapter 100 Grandmaster Level Primary Transformation Potion. As evening approached, a streak of setting sun was about to set. Triumph City gradually became dark, and every household lit candles. In the Wild Deer Bar in the middle of the city, candlesticks were placed against the wall. Each candlestick had more than 10 white candles. The candles were burning, and the wax dripped all over the candlesticks. The Wild Deer Bar was as bright as day. The firelight reflected on the faces of some drunkards, making their already red faces even redder. Ronan and Paul sat at a bar, drinking honey wine. By the way, they had dinner. This time, Paul asked Ronan out. He said that the matter that Ronan asked him to do had been settled. It was a wizard apprentice from the Kingdom Wizard Academy who was willing to sell a second level inferior growth potion formula. Ronan asked the price, and the price was acceptable, but Paul said that the wizard apprentice had a condition. She wants you to tell her the secret of refining the anti-aging agent. Paul said. Have you told her my identity? Ronan asked without thinking about the condition. Of course not. Paul said. Ronan nodded and said, but I have no tricks to make anti-aging agents. It's all based on talent. There must be a way to increase the success rate, right? Paul asked. Ronan shook his head. He made it completely according to the formula. His success rate was high because he had extremely precise control of temperature and time. This ability, except for him and some alchemy wizards, only higher level formal wizards have. Does she have any other conditions? Ronan asked again. I don't know. Paul shook his head. I'll ask her tomorrow. The next day, Ronan and Paul met again at the Wild Beer Bar. How is it? Ronan asked the first sentence he came up. Paul said, she has a condition, which is to see you make an anti-aging agent with her own eyes. After hearing this, an idea came to Ronan's mind. So, he said, okay, but we can't meet. I can only use the image stone to record my refining process. She will pay for the image stone. I'll ask her tomorrow. After Paul answered, he called the bartender and ordered honey wine and a sumptuous meal. Then, he tilted his head and said to Ronan, I've been working hard for you these days. This meal is still yours. Another day later, Ronan and Paul met again at the Wild Beer Bar. Paul gave him a positive answer. The wizard apprentice agreed to this proposal. I'm going to the Lani vault. Paul took out a voucher from the storage magic device. Take out the gold coins she gave me to buy the image stone. Ronan glanced at the voucher and saw a family crest and a string of signatures on it. Afterwards, Ronan and Paul went to the Lani vault and bought a image stone in a wizard shop. The shadow magic stone is a magic stone made by engraving the shadow magic pattern on the mirror stone. After Paul bought the shadow magic stone, Ronan took it and looked at it carefully. Soon, he recorded all the shadow magic patterns on it. Afterwards, he and Paul found a hotel in the lower city and booked a room. He drank a bottle of primary transformation potion and turned into a woman with a curvy figure. Now, his primary transformation potion has reached the master level. After drinking it, it is not difficult to make a big change in his body with the help of spirit. It is just that turning into a woman requires a lot of magic power, and only one potion can last for about half an hour. However, he only refined one anti-aging agent, and half an hour is enough. After turning into a woman, Ronan covered himself tightly with a cloak and a mask. In this way, he can be sure that even his father can't recognize him after seeing the image in the shadow magic stone. When Paul saw that Ronan could actually transform into a woman, his eyes lit up, and he hurriedly said, Ronan, your primary transformation potion has actually reached this level? Can you give me a few copies? Help me get the second level growth accelerating potion, and I'll give it to you. Ronan made a promise. He actually didn't want to give it to Paul, but he was afraid that Paul would do evil after using the primary transformation potion to transform into a woman. After all, the primary transformation potion is not made by adding other people's things, and after drinking it, it can only change the appearance. Although Paul will change into the appearance of a woman, his breath and energy fluctuations will not change, which will be easy to be discovered. Especially Paul, a wizard apprentice who practices fire elemental witchcraft, has a stronger energy fluctuation than wizard apprentices of the same level, which makes it easier to be discovered. If Paul is discovered, it will implicate him. Okay. Paul walked aside, picked up the magic stone for taking pictures, and was ready to take pictures at any time. Ronan took out the tools for refining medicine from the storage magic tools and placed them on the table in the room. Then, he asked Paul to start recording. Paul nodded and injected his magic power into the recording mode. Suddenly, an image of Ronan appeared in the center of the recording magic stone. Ronan, who had a curvy figure and was covered tightly, began to refine the anti-aging agent. About 20 minutes later, Ronan had refined a portion of the anti-aging agent. Seeing Ronan pour the anti-aging agent into the medicine bottle and plug it with a cork, Paul controlled the magic power to circulate the recording magic stone until the image of Ronan refining the medicine was completely solidified in the magic stone. Outside the magic stone, you can see the image of Ronan just now, playing in a loop in the core of the magic stone. As long as you probe the magic power into it, you can control the forward and backward movement of the influence. I will definitely keep the recording magic stone and hand over the image. Paul promised, and then said, I wonder if you can give me the primary transformation potion with the effect of the medicine just now. At this time, the effect of the medicine on Ronan was gradually dissipating. He gradually grew taller, and the protrusions in front and behind gradually shrank back. As his body shape recovered, he said, I only produced one bottle of this kind of primary transformation potion, which is the one I just drank. But as long as my condition is good enough, I will definitely be able to refine another bottle in the future. After refining it, I will give it to you immediately. You must keep your word. Paul listened to what Ronan said, half disappointed and half excited. On the second day, Paul finally lived up to Ronan's expectations and took the formula of the second level inferior growth promoting potion. Ronan took it back to the bungalow, took out the formula, and looked at it carefully. This second level inferior growth promoting potion formula is called wood spirit water. According to Paul, this formula is the formula of the elves. It should be when the wizard drove away the elves, or when he conquered the elves, he snatched this formula. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.